Hello everybody and welcome, and also Merry Christmas, because this is the start of our usual Christmas tradition where we release a tier list video for myself, Bryn, and Travis over the next 3 days. I'm going to be Christmas Eve, Bryn is Christmas Day, and Travis is Boxing Day because he likes to punch people. I also, I'll probably bring this up in Bryn's list video, but I had a dream a few nights ago that we were recording Bryn's tier list, and he kept making up new tiers that I needed to put into the thing, and he was like, I think I'm gonna put Patrice Hathaway in the XLA4 tier this year, and I'm like, okay, Bryn, I'll do it if you want me to. I'll slip you a sub if you put Norman on S tier. Oh, I like this. You know what? I'm corrupt. I'll gladly change my opinions if you grease the palms. A few things. This is all your fault, commenters. We had so many people complain that we had a A+ and a B+ tier last year. They were like, this is going against what tier lists are all about. So this is all your fault when now everyone is going to be rated lower in their tiers. Because now we removed A+ and B+, and I added an F tier. So let me just say that feelings are going to get hurt and people are going to trend downward. This is going to be a mean tier list, and people are going to be like, what do you mean this person is in B tier? That's because A+ tier doesn't exist anymore. B+ doesn't exist anymore. So unfortunately, this one is going to trend lower just by the very nature of losing some tiers that we had to do the minutia. Because the reality is that there is, in Arkham, every investigator is playable, but it's the question of how good they are, or rather, how much effort do you need to put in? How much effort do you need to put in to get good out of that character, right? Because I think we can all agree that every investigator can win a campaign. I think that's just the reality of this game, right? But when you come to the real question of power level, I think it becomes how easily does that investigator win the game? Like, I think it's pretty obvious that Trish Scarborough is going to win the game easier than Jenny Barnes. But I think Jenny Barnes can also win the game. On the note of Jenny Barnes, we're not going to be talking about any of the book stuff, because I do think that, like, while those things are easy to play digital, not everybody plays digital, and not everybody, you know, like, our conversations are not only about the book investigators, apart from in the form that they can only exist in, which is Gloria, but Gloria is we're about to get her physical release. So we're not talking about, like, Green Man Medallion when it comes to Jenny. I actually, honestly, this might be a little bit rude, but I actually, honestly think that talking about Jenny and Green Man Medallion is actually a legitimate waste of time. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not, like, it doesn't exist for public purchase anymore. I'm not here to talk about it. Likewise, I think that I'm also getting to the point where I don't want to talk about things like Backpack 2 anymore until they start printing them somewhere else, because it's just, unfortunately, a waste of time. Okay, yes. And also for parallel, I'm not going to be including mixing and matching in my power ranking, but I do think it is going to be a relevant conversation about the viabilities of the investigators, but I'm not included in my own power ranking. And lastly, this is all my own personal opinion. If you think that Jenny Barnes is S tier, I'm very happy for you, and I'd also love to, you know, like, get some of what you're smoking. But it is one of those things that, like, if you don't take this personally, a lot of people in the past have taken these things personally when I put someone they like in a lower tier. And to that I say, stress not. One day we will all be worm food and there is nothing to worry about. This is just for fun, to get my perspectives on how these investigators function in the game. Now, with all that preliminary stuff out of the way, let's start with Roland Banks. Roland Banks is the quintessential C-tier investigator for me. A reason for this is that he is not that good and not that bad. He needs a good amount of support in order to get to the point where he is able to, function at a level that, like, an A-tier investigator would work at. A big thing for Roland is that he has a very fair stat line. Damn next, 40 months of the golden table, C for crime, you know it. I always wish Bryn was here for my videos, because he always I always enjoy Bryn's X for X. They're always really enjoyable. But the thing with Roland Banks is that his stat line is incredibly fair. If I've said this before on the channel, I'm pretty sure for when I also say this during the last tier list, is that if every if every character was like Roland Banks, I think the game would be in a much healthier spot. But I think the reality is that Roland Banks is like too well made, like he's too well balanced, that it becomes one of those things that it's hard to match that in other investigators, because he is just like in my mind, the quintessential Arkham investigator, and he is very well designed because of that. I don't want to spend too long on each investigator. We do have a lot of investigators to talk about. But for me, the things that would make Roland Banks higher in the B tier is more synergy with his ability, more viability as well in terms of like what he could do to grab monsters. And if we got like another seeker fighter, I think that would really boost his support as well. I think Roland's great, like a great playable, a very fun investigator, but I think for power level, he is pretty flat. Daisy Walker is going to be in the A tier. There is a plus side to not having A plus tier. People won't yell at me for not putting Daisy in A plus tier. All of these opinions are based on how I have experienced the investigator in various forms that I've played, as well as how I have seen other people function with these investigators. I do think that Daisy Walker is obviously a phenomenal investigator. I don't think she's personally S tier for me. And the reason for that is unless you are doing a wild and wacky combo, she is efficient and very powerful, but overall she is very fair and she can actually still struggle. I think that there's just, the reason why she is so good is because, one, she has 5 book. It's hard to beat 5 in a do something stat, whether it be your brain if you're a mystic, foot if you're a rogue, book or fist if you're just like literally any investigator. It's hard to beat that. But it's also that they have weaknesses that show up, you know, like grasping hands can cause you to fall apart. And then you need to start thinking about, how am I going to survive those things? I have my soak that I can do it, but these are all cards that you need to use to pass these tests. And this is kind of like where the balance of the game comes in, that no investigator is good at all of these things. Back to my point about the, back to the point that it has, the crazy combo decks. Yes, you can get S tier, but I actually, unfortunately, unless that it is specifically something that investigator can do by themselves with no other sort of cross-contamination that another investigator can do, I think it speaks more to the combo than the investigator. People might have a problem with that, admittedly, like they might think that's an unfair assessment, but it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, some investigators are going to be better at doing the combo, but like the strength relies in the combo. Like I've seen people talk about, you know, like Daisy Walker is really good with like archaic glyphs, right? You know who's also good with archaic glyphs? Rex, Min, probably Ursula, Mandy, Harvey, right? Like it's like one of those things that it kind of carries over like a flat assessment for that as well for me personally. Daisy's really good. The big issue with Daisy for how she hasn't also grown too much for me as an investigator is that she hasn't really seen a tome in my mind that competes with Old Book of Lore. And if you don't know, Old Book of Lore is from the core set. It was Daisy's first book. She did get Grim Memoir very recently, and while I think that card is very nice in Daisy, it basically just does a Rex Murphy impression, and everyone is so hyped on that, but they're like, you know, like Rex Murphy is still just like Rex Murphy. So like that's the thing that's really keeping for me from growing, and I think the issue is that because Old Book of Lore is such a good tome, the Old Book of Lore is such a good tome, it's one of those things that like, that's kind of been like the apex of what Daisy Walker is for me personally when I play her. Grim Memoir with Abigail is insane in Daisy though. I agree, but you know what also would probably be pretty good? Most other investigators with Abigail and Daisy. Like, I guess for Abigail and Grim Memoir, right? Like, yes, Daisy gets the free action, but when you're getting that much value, like, what are you doing with your remaining 3 actions? Playing an asset? right? Like you're playing an asset because you've like drawn so many cards, right? And like it's like one of those things. It's hard for me to put it into perspective about that kind of statement, right? Because Abigail Foreman and Grim Memoir is good, and I think it is obviously best in Daisy. But I think every other investigator who can do that also plays that very well, right? So to me, like a statement like that, while very true, doesn't actually separate power too much for me personally in my assessment of them. But I think Daisy's very good. Skids O'Toole. So I think he got better with Hemlock. I think Hemlock did a lot of good for Skids O'Toole. I did scroll down. Very astute viewers will know that I did scroll down here. Because he's not going to be in the high end of things. He's still my least favorite investigator to play. Mostly just because of the memories I have associated with him. But I think, yeah, you're right. He got better, not good, is the best way to say it. So I think I'm actually going to put him in D tier. I don't think he's going to be an F tier. Honestly, I have to, it's like, some slight spoilers for Travis' list. He viewed F tier as like design failure tier. And I think I might try to do the same thing. Where it's like a tier that's, a tier that is like, just like, there was issues in the design that unfortunately led the character to be a little bit flat for me. And not in like the good Roland Banks kind of flat. So Skids O'Toole did get better. Wolf Mask. He got Wolf Mask. He got Cleaning Kit in Hemlock Vale. And these are all nice tools. He got the British Bulldog, right? Like these are all nice tools. But the issue is that pretty much every other Guardian or Rogue got the same tools, right? So it's unfortunately one of those things that, again, when everyone else gets better, it's like when Rita got Sweeping Kick, right? Everybody else also got Sweeping Kick, but Rita is like, it was a bigger boost for her than it was for the other investigators. Like, Mark Harrigan had other tools to fight with and work really well with. So, like, Sweeping Kick was less appealing to him, right? And I know this is kind of sounding a little bit like me saying the Abigail Foreman and Daisy Walker and Grim Memoir doesn't boost Daisy enough for me. It's different. I know it doesn't sound different, but it actually is, right? Like, to me, on the higher tiers, if you are improving and getting cards, but it's not like, it's like there's room for improvement down here. In the high tier investigators, your ceiling, you're already so close to the ceiling, it's hard to like break through the glass ceiling, so to speak. But Skids O'Toole, he got Cleaning Kit, and you can do this cool combo with Ornate Bow and Cleaning Kit. And that's really cool and really functional, but I think that overall his power level still hasn't grown too much. But I don't think he's bottom tier anymore. Like, I don't think he's lowest of the low for me personally. A big issue with Skids is his ability still. I just don't think 2 resources are worth an action. Otherwise, more investigators would play Swift Reflexes. So I'm going to put him in D tier. Agnes Baker, I think, is an A tier investigator. I'm not going to be ordering these within the slides, like within the tiers. I'm just going to be putting them in here. They're all just vibing, living life, being friends together. Agnes has a great ability. Agnes has 5 brain. Agnes has an incredibly killer card pool. Anyone who has Survivor 02 is practically Survivor 05. Not actually, but like kind of actually. So it's like one of those things that's really good. The big sticking point for me for Agnes is that she hasn't really improved, right? Like, she hasn't really gotten anything to make her notably better. Ignore the I have to turn the brightness down on my camera. Ignore that. Ignore the properties. She hasn't really gotten anything that's like really just helped her get better. Her parallel version has. But Agnes herself hasn't really like changed too much which is really unfortunate, but this is kind of like also the nature of having a million investigators, like a million of them. So like it's hard to have every investigator get something new in a set, like realistically, right? So yeah, I'm gonna put her in A tier. I think she's a very strong investigator. Yeah. Wendy Adams, I think, is also another A tier investigator. I think that her ability is very good. I think that the big issue for me for Wendy is that her signature weakness, is just such a big haymaker that it, like, unfortunately ruins the ability to play a very fun Wendy deck consistently, right? And to me, the most important thing, this is what it really all comes down to for how I view power level. The most important thing for me is consistency, right? So like the reality is that a lot of these investigators, I actually, like, for example, like, it's just the way my brain works. Like Daisy Walker, Rex, Min, Ursula, Mandy, Harvey. I'm picturing, okay, so what happens if these motherfuckers get 2 magnifying glasses in their hand slots, right? Like, you know, that is, that's kind of like the metric of where I start with these. So it's like one of those things where I've lost my tangent because I read something in chat and I need to, like, not read while I'm in the middle of a tangent. So unfortunately I lost the sauce here. But like, for Wendy, like, it's like the consistency. There we go. We found the line again. It's the consistency for those things. And Wendy's weakness makes it so that you can't do the event slinging deck because she has a signature. So this is to go what you're saying, Holly Helicopter. Her weakness is bad because her signature gives you this illusion of a playstyle of, I'm going to be playing events from my deck, from my discard pile, right? And then, because recursion is so powerful, and you can essentially kind of just go infinite with it, they were like, okay, we need to have a signature weakness that really, like, eats it up. And the issue is that if you find your signature weakness way before you find your amulet, you can actually just kill that playstyle. So the better and stronger thing to do with Wendy Adams is ignore that and instead just use her really good stat line and really good ability, right? So, like, that is kind of like where the issue for me is Wendy Adams personally on, like, a design level where it's a much bigger counter than Paranoia to Big Money, right? Like, it's much bigger because you can get that money back, but, like, if you have removed 2/3 of your deck, of the events in your deck, your signature asset's just dead at that point. So again, it becomes one of those things that I feel like she would be a stronger investigator due to design intention if her signature weakness was not as painful. However, with that said, she got Hemlock Vale cards, so she got the British Bulldog, which is really good for her. Sure, the Rogue O2 is a very, very nice place to be. And Survivor 05 obviously is mostly just Survivor 03, but it's a very nice card pool for a very, very tight investigator. Her ability is still super relevant. It's going to get, I think, even better with Drowned City. If we do get the cycle of the improvised cards, like, we're gonna Wendy's gonna be eating big for that cycle. All right, 20 minutes in and we got through the core set. We're killing it. Zoe Samaras, she is the chef. I'm gonna be putting her in B tier. I think she's gonna be our first our first really good just B tier investigator. So the thing that she has going for her is that her ability smooths out resource gain, which is something in the Guardian class that is really hard to manage. However, as the card pool gets bigger and people play cards to suddenly realize, wait a minute, this card is actually super banging, those kind of weaknesses start to kind of evaporate, right? Like, Guardians are a lot more consistent with resource generation than they were in the past, so Zoe Samaras's ability is less exciting, right? It's likewise with Mark Harrigan. As Guardians get more draw, Mark Harrigan's ability is less of a dividing factor than it was, because with Zoe and Mark, they kind of came out and it's like, how do we defeat through the investigators? How do we defeat our class's weakness? And they did that through resource gain and draw, right? Because those weren't really a thing back then. But then Nat Cho came out. We're about to get that new card in Marion, with Marion Tavares, where in Drowned City, where if you draw an enemy during the Mythos phase, you heal horror and draw cards, right? It's one of those things that, like, the strength of their investigator card is becoming weaker, right? So Zoe, I think, is trending down. The other thing that's making Zoe trend down is the fact that her Dunwich deck building, unfortunately, I think does not keep up with the entire investigator card pool, right? Like, it's Zoe's ability is Zoe's deck building. The Dunwich 5 splash sounds really open, right? You can have 5 level 0 cards from any class. But it's actually, as the card pool gets bigger, and you have, like, so for example, again, Mark Harrigan, who gets level 0 tactics, any number, that is just going to generally actually be stronger than 5 level 0 at all. I've said this before, that if the number was like 8, I think we'd be talking, right? Or if they wanted to keep it an odd number, 9. But it's like one of those things that unfortunately, I think just like with the current card pool, it's less appealing. Her cross is still good, and if Guardians get weapons, she improves, but that's true for all Guardians as well. So she's a B tier. Rex Murphy. Rex Murphy. So I see people online talk about Rex Murphy, and they always say he's not as strong as people think he is. And then I play him, and I'm like, I'm winning the campaign, I'm winning the scenario 5 turns earlier than other investigators, right? And it is hard for me to ignore that. Mano Malice, by the way, thank you. 3 months of the Golden Table. Thank you for your support. It's hard for me to ignore that with Rex Murphy because it's just such a tempo game, right? Like, and then you stack your tempo game on top of your tempo gain, and your tempo is just incredible. If you win the game quicker, the game can't beat you, right? I still think to this day, Rex, even tabooed, is S-tier investigator. Like, I think that's actually just, for me, something that is just kind of unavoidable. It's like, he is just that damn good. Because even if you're just like, going to that thing where I'm like, I got my 2 magnifying glasses, you know, I got like this, and you're gonna do it. Like, you generally just decide to, you generally just decide, I'm gonna win the game quicker. Like, that's what it really all comes down to. Javier Altman, thank you for the Twitch Prime, much appreciated. But yeah, I'm in the Rex pose right now. It's like, I do honestly, when people say they don't think he is S tier, I do give it a fair shake, right? Like, I do think about it, and then I play him, and I crush it, and I just still can't shake it. He's still S tier for me personally. Because again, if you just win the game quicker, it's like, his ability is just like so good, because every other investigator who has like the gain a clue ability, right? As like, like the other thing is that like everyone's ability is kind of like, it's like the concept is that you gain an action, right? Like, that's kind of like what their ability is. It's like Jenny gains an extra resource action a turn, right? Ursula, she gets to investigate when she moves. Finn gets the evade action, right? And Rex's is essentially just you're getting an additional clue for your test. But like every other investigator, when they're doing this thing, like even just pointing to Daisy Walker with Grim Memoir, which is awesome, right? Like it's an awesome thing for her. But like Rex Murphy is gonna just do it with the cards you put in play, right? Like he's just gonna like do it. You commit a perception to a 2-shroud location. By the way, this is all for standard 2 to 4 players. I don't play solo. I don't play hard or expert. That's not part of any of this conversation. I'm not even like gonna like humor it. I'm not here. I mean, if you're here to talk about like I think Rex is bad and hard, I'm like cool. Find a channel that plays only hard and then ask them to make a tier list. Is what I'm gonna say to that. But you're on standard. You just commit a perception, right? A card that I play in every one of my secret decks. You draw a -2 or a 0, and now suddenly you have gotten your 2 clues and you draw a card, right? Like that is, I compare that to just any other secret investigator, and I just still like that tempo is not there on like the basic level, right? That's like to me what the dividing line for Rex is. And like I think it's very fair with the argument that people make, which is I'll echo what Ezekiel Abaddon is saying in chat. A lot of investigators can be taboo Rex with no more effort required, and I think that is very true. No, I mean, I think like a little effort. You need a little effort. Like I think Daisy is probably the closest because she just needs one asset. And I think with Rex, you probably need one asset to start getting there, right? So I think Daisy to me is like the closest for it. But even then, Rex just has to do what you're doing to do it, right? Ursula's probably the closest. I disagree. Because Ursula is... So Ursula, okay, we'll get to it when we get to Ursula, but I think we have to set a good groundwork. We have to set a good ground floor for this whole video with Rex Murphy here. Ursula, in order to do it, you need to do something you might not want to do, right? Like, say, for example, you're playing 3-player in your 6th clue location. You move into it in Ursula, you investigate, and then you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm just not going to use my ability this turn, or if I want to use my ability, I need to move to an adjacent location, right? And that is an issue, right? Rex, you don't need to. You move into the 6th clue location, and you say, hello, I'm Rex Murphy. I'm going to get 3 clues this turn, 3 clues next turn, and then I'm moving on, right? Like, you don't need to think about it. And that's kind of like why Rex, to me, is so powerful. If anyone said that Rex was their A tier, I would not disagree with them, right? Like, I would not say you are wrong. I would just say, for me personally, Rex Murphy is still an S tier investigator. And this is after playing him twice in this last year, and he did better than any other secret investigator I played, except for maybe Harvey Walters. But Harvey Walters still, I saw some cracks in the foundation. Rex is just so quick, right? Rex is just, his pace is just so high. Jenny Barnes? Sorry, Jenny. You're going to go down to my F tier. I do not think you've improved over the last year. I think that everyone else has done better than you this last year. I think that if Rogue keeps getting more big money cards, everyone else is just going to play them better and more efficiently. So I think unfortunately, Jenny, you're going to be my F tier. You need so, like, again, if we look at this in the conversation of how much effort do I need to pop off, Jenny needs a lot of effort. She needs so much. Like, if I even just look at, let's just look at it like this, okay? Let's say Skids O'Toole and Jenny Barnes each played a British Bulldog and a Locks Picks. Like, I'm just flexing with these two investigators. Skids O'Toole, without any other assistance, is using his lockpicks at 7, which is still not great. But he is firing his gun at 4, which is still not great. Jenny, lockpicks, 6. British Bulldog, 3. You might not use the British Bulldog, right? It's one of those things that I think, unfortunately, the 3 stat line is just abysmal. I understand that there are people who like making Jenny pop off and like they like building around her, but I am not one of those people, so she is going to be my my F tier. Jim Culver, I love this guy. I think I'm going to put him in one of these two bottom tiers. I just need to decide which one. I love him, though. I play him a lot. I play this MFer a lot. I played Jim. I think I played him twice this year. But he's so... like, Jim to me is my Timmy, right? Jim is my Timmy. I'm a Jimmy, right? He's the investigator when I love his flavor so much, and I love just... the idea of him that I just keep going back to him, right? But he's not good. He is not good. I think I am going to put him in F tier. I think he's easily the worst mystic. Do I think he's worse than Amina? Yes. Because Amina has an ability. Like, I know people are going to say, as they always do, that Jim Culver... and that's the nice thing about doing so many of these videos. I already know, like, the arguments people are going to make for a lot of these. Jim Culver, his ability, just because it helps you pass tests more, that's not an ability. Like, it is. I understand, like, from a game design standpoint, it is an ability. But, like... the idea that I can take a test up one and have a higher chance of succeeding doesn't really do the same for me as just like out-tempoing the game, dealing damage, getting extreme value, right? Like, it's just like not the same thing. Loki, I feel like forehead, no ability, 05 purple is baseline solid alright anyway. Yes, you can say that, but then you probably wouldn't be a good content creator. If I put like all of these mystics here and said they're good because they can just play Holy Rosary, that's not like a good metric of conversation about these investigators, right? Yes, Jim can play Holy Rosary and then Shriveling and go nuts, right? But so can every other mystic, and they have abilities that are relevant, right? So, like, Jim is going to just scale down because of that, because he doesn't have an ability that's good. Like, he doesn't have an ability that's good. It's just the true fact. And his deck building is also doesn't make up for having, like, a snoozy shit ability, right? Ashcan Pete. I think he's just another great B-tier investigator. I think he's going to see some noted improvement in this next cycle. In Drowned City, I think Ashcan Pete is going to see a nice boost. Is it enough to get him into A tier? Well, I mean, we'll have to see in 2025 for that. Because, like, he has also that new, like, Carlisle, or whatever that guy's name is, Robert Carlisle, that mother fricker. Like, that's going to help them quite a bit. It's going to give us some good resource generation. But the thing is, like, survivors, their card pool is just generally kind of, like, efficient enough that they'll have all the tools they need to do that stuff without needing to worry about finding it somewhere else. But, I mean, I do think he's going to get a lot of improvement. So why is Ashcan Pete B? I think kind of like Roland, he is just a very fair investigator, but I think his ability is just generally more efficient, right? Yeah, I don't really have much to say about Ashcan Pete. He has weaknesses. Your two Duke abilities are, like, they eventually go away each turn. Then you're like, what am I doing with my third? I'm not really able to put out the exact same tempo. Survivors just generally, unless they're scavenging, kind of just fall behind on that kind of thing. Or if, like, they're able to, like, you know, just do some sort of recursion, like with sharp vision or something like that. But Ashcan Pete is not really good at scavenging, or, like, he can do it, but he's not really great at scavenging or, like, sharp vision shenanigans, right? I think that it's unfortunately just a case where he is, I mean, B's a good tier. Like, with the new system, B is, like, second from the top, like, or third from the top, right? Like, you know, like, it's like these are like all, to me, these are all like the good to great investigators, and these are fantastic investigators. C are like fine, D is like okay, and then we have these other guys who are hanging out at the bottom. Mark Harrigan, yes, he is A tier. Sorry, Mark tried to sneak up into S tier. No, this guy is A tier. As I said with Zoe, like, Mark is at risk of having his ability be kind of just scaled out of the game. However, his ability is not just drawing cards, in all fairness. He also has Sophie, and Sophie allows Mark to do whatever he wants to do. He is a very good... Bryn brought him as a flex investigator. No, he brought him as the Culver investigator, and he actually did a really good job when we did our recent thing. And Mark is like really good at filling whatever gap he needs to fill in the team, which is surprising. I think that's actually kind of been like, as the card pool for the Guardian class has evolved to do more support, Mark Harrigan has kind of evolved with that, and he's able to do it really well. If someone brought a Mark Culver to a 2-player campaign, I actually think that it would function actually pretty okay. Which is kind of crazy to say, but I actually think that Mark does have those capabilities now. Do I think it makes him more powerful? No, but I do think it makes him more interesting. But on the power level, if we look at just his traditional job of 5-fist, I think that's pretty legit. I think that's pretty legit. I think Mark Harrigan's very impressive still. He's a very good investigator. Min T Fan is going to go in these B tiers that are investigators that are very good, but also very fair. Min does have a very good card pool. I would be remiss to not say it out, also because someone will point it out to me and say that Min is... her card pool is very good, and it is. And I think notably, actually, like, if she can get an upgrade and winging it, oh my god, like, it's going to be very nice for her if there is that full cycle. It's one of those things that the thing that's keeping Min from being very strong for me personally is that every time I've seen someone play Min, it ends, myself included, I'm not going to be passing the blame here. There always ends up being a moment where Min's like, I guess I'm going to evade this enemy because we're kind of have our back against the wall, because Min, unlike Daisy and Rex, doesn't offer the extreme efficiency to beat the game quicker, just natively. Your pace is not going to be as high as it is with some of these other investigators. I think Min offers a very good consistency, but I don't think she provides too much efficiency unless, again, you are building like the crazy things that you can do with her, which let's be real for a second and talk about the idea of those combos again. If I wanted to put every investigator here for how I viewed their high end and ignored their low end, every investigator would be A tier. I've had an A tier Jim Culver in a scenario, right? But does that mean Jim Culver is A tier? Unfortunately, no. And I've had A tier. I've seen S tier Mins, but I've also seen in the same scenario that Min performed like a D tier investigator. It's just because, like, when your ability is just about like consistency, it's not going to be doing enough to push you ahead too far. I also, yes, I want to play a Hacker Min. I do want to play a Hacker Min. The problem with Hacker Min, though, is that it's kind of like Wendy, where you need to draw the right cards at the right time, and I personally hate that playstyle. I would rather just win the game quicker by being boring and playing magnifying glass. And that's kind of my issue. All right, Saphina Rousseau. All right, this is going to be controversial. I'm super down on Saphina. Where am I putting her? It might not be controversial. So my gut instinct said D tier. Well, you know what, Ezekiel, you know what, you and I might be on the same page. This may be less controversial. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take a big swing. I'm putting her in the D tier. I'm going to do it. I'm putting her in D tier. And the reason for this is that I don't think she's good. I don't think she's good. I don't think she's grown. I don't think she's seen any improvement. I think she's actually just generically gotten worse as the card pool has grown, which is a crazy thing to say, but it's the fact that she actually doesn't have an ability, right? Like she doesn't actually do anything. Her ability is a bad mulligan. And like she's so locked in, and because she hasn't really seen any good event improvements, it doesn't really work for her. I think someone can still play a very tight and good Saphina, but I think generally, like every time I've seen this is why I'm trending so D tier for this. A lot of people bring Saphina Rousseau to the Patreon game days. This is why I feel very lucky that I'm able to have all these different perspectives on these investigators, because I see multiple people bring different interpretations of these investigators to multiple games throughout the year, right? And every Saphina Rousseau that I've seen has been like, I've drawn my opening hand, and then we get to like the 8th or 9th scenario of the game, and they're like, I'm a Chuck Fergus deck. And Chuck Fergus wasn't in my mulligan. I haven't seen him. I keep drawing Star of Hyades, killing future draws. And it's just like, it's unfortunately one of those things where... And like that happened more than once. I think that happened like 2 times. To me, that was just such a glaring hole in Saphina Rousseau that I'm not able to get past, right? Because she is so dependent on that mulligan. And if the mulligan is not great... Or, like, if just generally, like, it's just, like, you're gonna, like, get fricked. You're gonna get fricked because you don't have an ability after that. And then your weakness, like, is just, like, her weakness sucks. And it's good. I do like when signature weaknesses suck. I do. But I do feel like, generally, if you have a really bad weakness, you want to have an ability that, like, matches it. So, and I don't think Saphina's does, because she actually just doesn't have an ability. Achi Onyele? She's going to be a B tier for me. I used to always put her and Agnes, I think, on the same tier. But I think the issue is that Achi has dropped down in value over time, which might seem crazy. But I think that just generally, a lot of mystics now, they're either, like, using, like, Brand of Cthugha, or they are using clairvoyance. They're using clairvoyance to get clues, but then they also have an ability that's like better. I think also cards like Uncaged the Soul 3 have kind of nullified Achi. There's also that new card that came out on Hemlock Vale, Call of the Beyond, I think it's called. The one that lets you refill an asset, right? With you have to put curse tokens in and lets you refill an asset to do the Call of the Beyond. Yes, like these are all cards that I think are good for the Mystic class as a whole, but they are cards that ultimately just kind of nullify Akachi's ability, causing her to drop down. She still has 5 brains, so she's still very good. But like when you have Mystics that have more relevant abilities, it's harder to put all of this together. So unfortunately, Achi is just kind of like, she's slipping, but I think she's still very playable. Yeah, she has a great stat line. Like that's the thing that I think will never make her fall too far down, because her stat line is just like popping. But like, I mean, Agnes has like very similar stat line, but like a good ability. They're actually very similar, yeah. But I think like now we're starting to see the divide, right? Where as charges become easier to find, or alternatively less important, Achi is going to drop down in value. William Yorick, the Gravedigger, otherwise known as Will Yorick. Bill. A tier. Great fighter, great ability, dangerous. I feel like Will Yorick is close to being problematic. Honestly, he might even be there. If you build like a hyper efficient Will Yorick deck, you'll never die, and it's kind of scary. His ability is gated, but it's less gated than it was before. If we get like another ability to fish out enemies, like it's gonna become like I could trigger it every turn. And I feel like Will Yorick was designed to be like every other turn, kind of in a way, in its original intention. Schaffner's was huge, but this has been for a while. He didn't really get anything too crazy in Hemlock, right? I feel like I should have, I feel like I would know, but I feel like I should have like Hemlock cards open to kind of just look at them. But Hunting Jacket, yeah, Hunting Jacket, but I mean like, Hunting Jacket is insane on it. I agree, but I think you guys have, I think honestly it's a lower value of what insane is for me personally. I think Hunting Jacket's good on every investigator. I think it's good. I mean, honestly, maybe I haven't played it, but I mean like, it seems very good in him, but I don't know. I feel like it's, to me, Hunting Jacket. So to me, Hunting Jacket in Will Yorick, it's kind of the same. Okay. It's kind of the same as the leather coat. And I know that sounds crazy, right? But if I played my leather coat for free, I've gained 2 resources, right? So, like, that's kind of like, I think it's good. Like, I think it's good, but, like, to me, it's not as impressive as that. It's Keepsake plus Schaffner's together. Yeah, but you still have to put in, like, the 2, because Hunting Jacket costs 2, right? Like, I'm not saying it's not good. I'm not saying, like, it's not good. I'm just saying that you guys sound like, I don't know, I think just my level of what is good is different than yours, personally. Because, like, I look at that, right? And the Ancestral Token is good for him as Blessed Archetype. The Ancestral Token is good for oh, God. It's good for every Guardian. It's good for anyone who can play it. It's good for anyone who can play it. I'm not going to give Will Yorick more points on that because it's flat. It's flat. Like, Hunting Jacket is still just flat, I think. I'm looking for game changers. Because, like, if we look at Hunting Jacket, which, again, I'm not saying is bad for Yorick, right? Like, I'm not saying, like, it's that kind of thing. But, like, it has a bigger ask at the start than just, like, if I play my leather coat, I'm basically gaining 2 resources, right? But he has infinite favor of the Sun and Covenant. I did it with, but the thing is, like, you could still do it without that, right? Like, you could still do, I built an infinite Will Yorick deck without Ancestral Token. And I did it, like, very easily. So, like, to me, I've already seen that. I'm not going to give this guy marks because he got better at an archetype I've already nailed. Right? Like, I think that, like, for me, that doesn't move the needle. And also, like, I don't understand because I don't think he's S tier. So, like, what are we arguing, right? What is all this about? Like, I think he's all A tier. I do agree that Hunting Jacket's good for him and probably better than I'm giving it credit for. I will agree with that. I think that is truth. But it's, I think that it's not, I don't think he got anything too crazy. I do want to see, like, I think, like, a Clue Yorick deck, how good is it, like, with the Matchbox, but I still don't think that's enough. All right, but now I have Hemlock open. I can actually just look at these stuff. I think we're just tangenting. It's true. It's true. We love tangents here. All right, Lola Hayes, F tier. Yeah, I have to be, because we got rid of the A+ and B+, I feel like I need to lash out this year. So in the past, I've given Lola, like, the C tier, but I'm dropping her down this year as punishment for that. Also because, like, I've had no desire to play her, and anytime, like, I've thought about playing Lola, I've been like, no thank you. Lola can use 2 magnifying glasses at once. I agree, she can use 2 magnifying glasses at once. But then she can't do anything else because she has to be in seek. Oh no, I guess she uses those passively because they're not abilities. So scratch that. But yeah, the thing is, like, every time I've wanted to play Lola, it's fallen into the like putting 2 magnifying glasses into play. But I do think that unfortunately she's just like not great. Oopsie. Leo Anderson. So I think Leo is going to get a big boost in Drowned City. And the reason for that, I don't know what... So I'm recording this on December 6th to give some context to everyone who's watching this on Christmas. So I do not know what cards we are going to see from Drowned City by the time this video comes out. So there might already be a card that is going to be great for Leo. But I do think that Lilo... I read Lola in chat and it came to Lilo in my head. It's one of those things that like, I think that he's going to get some good guns to really support him in this one because of Michael McGlenn. I have Lola's... I think Lola is a great flavor investigator. I love her flavor. I love her character, but I do not like her function, unfortunately. I think that people who enjoy Lola are awesome, and I think that they are elite gamers, but I am unfortunately not one of them. I am not an elite gamer. I am a very basic gamer where I want my 2 magnifying glasses and like 4 book at least. So it's one of those things for me personally. But yeah, Leo Anderson, I think overall though is not the best. I'm gonna put him in C tier right now. I do agree that the Luger is gonna be very nice for him. It's just a question of what he uses in his other hand that he doesn't just want to like... but it is a lightning bolt ability. I think the Luger is going to be a very sweet weapon though. I think it's going to be a very fun weapon to play with. Yeah, I'm going to put Leo Anderson in the C tier. He has a great stat line, great ability, great deck building, but his ability, more often than not, unless you're building around it, which then eats into the other things you're doing, kind of just is a little bit wibbly-wobbly, so it's not that great. Ursula Downs. Okay, I will say, one thing I always like to do is let Travis talk shit about Ursula Downs. It honestly, it tickles me pink whenever he does. I don't join in on those conversations. Sometimes I just like to rag on Lola. I do like to rag on Lola. But I like to kind of like join in on the Ursula shit talking when the time comes. But this is not one of those. I'm going to talk about the positives of Ursula. Ursula has a very nice ability. So Ursula and Zoe are like my 2 investigators that I bring to my blind play of a campaign, right? If I'm just doing this. Because her ability is very good and it's very efficient at 2 players. The problem is I do think that she becomes weaker at 3 and 4 players, going back to that issue when I talked about Rex, which feels like a half hour ago and honestly might have been. We're 53 minutes into this video. This is crazy. We're not even through Forgotten Age. That's fucking fucked. I don't want to speedrun. I want to give every investigator their fair shake, but this is crazy. But like, yeah, it's like one of those things, you move into a location with like 3-player clues and you're suddenly like, well, I guess I'm going to just not use my ability for a bit. You make up for this in theory by playing things like Pathfinder and all that, but like Zoe, Ursula is not exactly like busted. But what she is she is just safe and consistent and you don't need to do anything to build around her, right? This Daisy Walker, like, you need to, like, she's very good. You need to find some stuff to like pay off on it. Same with some of the other ones up here. Like, you kind of need to like have a plan for it. Like you have a higher high with like Mark Harrigan, but you need some soak, right? Like it's kind of like that kind of stuff. With Ursula, you can kind of just go. However, with that said, I do think Ursula is just going to be B tier for me. That's actually a great point, Heli Helicopter. I feel like a lot of people get very trapped by Ursula's ability. You don't have to jump through hoops for it. Just take it when it happens naturally. It's just Rex, but for 50-70% of the turns only, and that's just good already. I agree. It is good already, but I want to use my ability every turn, If I'm looking to seek absolute value, which I am, I want to be using my ability every turn. I agree that like I agree with the sentiment that like someone like the sentiment that like Travis has where you need to move, I don't think is necessarily a downside for Ursula's ability. But I do agree with Travis's statement, if you're not moving every turn or looking at moving every turn, why are you playing Ursula downs when her card pool is just like bad, right? Like it's like one of those things, like I definitely respect that sentiment that Travis has for it. And like honestly, like I'd rather just like, if I'm not moving, I'm just gonna play Daisy, right? Because Daisy's more fun. She has a better deck building. She has a better ability that I can use every turn, right? Like Ursula just like doesn't. I still think Ursula's a good investigator. That's why I'm gonna put her in B tier. But I do think that like while your statement is true, I think also the opposite, like what the opposite of what you're saying is true, right? Like it happens naturally, right? It happens naturally, but why would I settle for only it happening to 30 to 50% of my turns only, right? When I could instead find value for 100% of my turns. It's nearly the same ability as Duke, isn't it? It's very similar, yes. It's very similar, but Ashcan can do it twice while also squeezing further value out. I do also think we gotta respect Ursula's weakness. It's annoying as hell. And she has a shit-ass signature with Jake. Finn Edwards. I'm gonna put Finn in the B tier this year, I think. I think Finn's very good, but I think Finn hasn't grown much. I don't think he's seen anything too great. And I do think that like he's very similar to Trish. But I think Trish is now a tier above him, so I need to respect that in this stuff, because I think Trish is very good. Finn has a great stat line. He has an alright ability. He has... I don't want to talk... Is Dirty Fighting considered old news? It is. That was last year's tier list. We've had a whole year since Dirty Fighting came out. Unfortunately, Dirty Fighting is old hat. I don't want to talk about Finn Edwards' abilities too much, or his deck building too much. It just bums me out, man. I don't like the 03. I don't buy the 03. I don't think his ability is strong enough for the 03. I think that if you make an investigator that can play illicit items, or in Ursula's case, relics, or in Kate's case, science, and you do not design cards outside of that class, you might as well have just made them that an 05 green, right? If he had illicit splashes, I agree, Holy Helicopter, I would be more inclined to forgiving it. But because he does not, the guy, unfortunately, is a little bit of a wash for me on that regard. He's still one of my favorite investigators to play, but the issue is that Trish is just better. And there was a time when we actually rated... Bryn and I rated Finn higher than Trish. Travis rated Trish higher. Travis knew the truth. He knew the truth. Father Matteo. You might have noticed that I scrolled down. I like how you can always tell when I'm going to be putting someone in a lower tier. So I just made a video. Is Father Matteo good now? Did this year make him rise up a bit? It did. Olive McBride. I think I'm going to put him in C tier. I think we're going to put Father Matteo in C tier this year. Yeah, it's and exactly that. Like that's kind of, Valentin, you actually put it into better words than I could, because like I think he's gotten good, right? Because he is good, but like comparatively, he's just still not great, right? Like that's kind of like the thing, right? Like I think that is like exactly it. I think he's gotten better because now he has like a niche in like the token fishing with Olive 2, but I think it's not enough for him to break into this D tier, into this B tier, because like even with between these two, I'd rather play Akachi. Like if I was just looking at this flat, I'd rather play Akachi still. So I think this, yeah, I think this is I think that's a good spot for him. Yeah, and I do still think like he has a niche that is his own. I think he's a better token fisher than Jacqueline now, who you can't see. Father Matteo is actually blocking her out. How funny. So I think like that is... I think he still has like that home that is really good for him. But I do think unfortunately that token fishing is not super reliable. It's more reliable, but it's one of those things. So I like my thesis for that video was what made Father Matteo good was that he has now an archetype that is his, right? Like he has an archetype that is uniquely his, the Elder Sign fishing. But I don't think it's enough to make him like pop off to the next tier, right? And I will say, like to quote, like to put Valentin in here again because I think his messages here are killer. He needs more effort to make him do a good job compared to other investigators, especially mystics. It's true. So I'm gonna put him in C tier. Calvin Wright, I'm gonna put one of the lower tiers for sure. So, I want to say for Calvin, I actually think it's overstated how much you actually need to help this guy live. I'm going to take a little experiment here as I'm going. How many out of 30, how many cards would you put into Calvin Wright to make sure he doesn't die? Whether it be soak or healing or that kind of thing. How many cards would you do? We have a 6, we have a 2, 8, 10. 10, 6, 6, 7, okay. Honestly, I did 4. And I actually had no allies. And I never, like, died. I think, like, Idol of Xanatos, which did come out not in Hemlock. I don't think he got anything in Hemlock. But I think that generally, Calvin's ability to survive or necessary to soak is more overstated than it actually is, right? Like, because, yeah, I think that, like, for people who's saying that his deck is, like, weighed down, when you're weighed down by so much of your deck being about survival, it means you can't do other things. And I think, unfortunately, that idea is not true. However, I do agree with the sentiment of that if you are playing Calvin, what are you doing that you couldn't do with someone else? Because the idea is tested 0. There are survivors that are better, right? The idea that there is, like, if you're like, I'm going to get clues when my number gets big, like, other investigators just do that better. Playing Calvin because, like, he is interesting and enjoy. I mean, I just literally played him. There's on the channel right now, Circus Ex Mortis with Beard. I played him with that one because of the moon tokens, right? I think that, like, it's one of those things that, it's just like apart from, like, fun, the question is why, right? Like, why? And, like, that's not always an answer. Like, that is an answer that goes beyond power. That is an answer that goes into interest. And then the issue with Calvin and Lost Survivors 2 is that even when you have God stat, it's hard to convert it into tempo and extra clues or damage per actions. I have a slight beef with that statement, personally. I have a slight beef with that statement. And I think in 2-player, if you are not able to get tempo as a survivor, you are doing it wrong, right? Like, I think it's so easy to get tempo to match the other stuff as a survivor in 2-player. And like, if you cannot, if you find as your survivor, you're trying to be the main Culver with 3 or 4 players, you're gonna struggle. But that's what your other players are there for, right? So like, it's one of those things you need to adapt as a team and kind of just like go with it. I think it's true that Survivor's tempo is worse than other things, but they make up for it in terms of consistency. If we want to get into the big detailed conversations about that, but in 2-player, if you cannot find the tempo as a survivor, like that's on you, right? Like that's kind of like what it comes down to. I think in 2-player, any class can get the tempo needed. In 3 or 4, it does become harder, but that's what you have 3 or 4 players for. As for Kelvin, I do think this is a fair point. What you to go to your original point is that when you have God stats, like why not just start with them, right? I think I am going to put Kelvin in D tier this year. I think he's very much like Saphina, where he can have like cool high highs, but I think overall he is not that great. It's just, yeah, and I think that, yeah, like, so I do think that, like, while he and Hank, like, are starting to eat each other's lunch, I do think they eat different kinds of the lunch, you know? Survivor has, like, 4 deduction cards at this point. It has 1. Does it only have 1? I think you might be mistaken. Okay, let's go to Carolyn Fern. I think Carolyn Fern is a good B-tier investigator. Has a couple events that get multiple clues but not a deduction. What do you think a shorthand of us calling, like when we call an unexpected courage +2, right? Like Grim Memoir gives an unexpected courage, it's a shorthand. Like getting multiple clues is like one of those things, right? Like it's just like how we call the term of getting an extra clue. Dealing an extra damage is like dealing a vicious blow, right? Like it's kind of just like in the community at this point. And with that perspective, I do agree. They only have 1 actual deduction. That is 100. Like, I mean, they'll actually technically have 0 actual deductions if we get into the actual like literal thing of it. But like they have sharp vision, right? I think Carolyn is a cool investigator. I think she's a really fun investigator to play. I think you love having a Carolyn on your team. I think she's very interesting in how she scales from 2 to 4 players, and like what she does. I don't really have much to say. Just scrolling through Hemlock. I don't think she got anything too exciting in Hemlock. No. Yeah. I think she's cool. I think Carolyn is a cool investigator. I'm gonna give her B tier. I think she's really sick. She got transmogrify. She did get transmogrify. She did indeed. Joe Diamond. Sorry I don't have much to say about Carolyn. I've played her twice this year, I think. And, like, she's cool. So, the nice thing about Carolyn... I'll take a second to back on her. I actually did play the... I finally... Because every time... What was that? What's that shit-ass card that I always rag on and people get mad at me? Close the Circle. Close the Circle. The synergy card in the Mystic class. I always said like that card was bad, but was good in like decks that took advantage of it, which is like the truth. And everyone was like, "You got to play it in Carolyn. You got to play it in Carolyn." So I did, and it was good, but like it was still not great. It was a fun experience. They unfortunately / fortunately nerfed Close the Circle. I like the change. I don't like what it did for Close the Circle, but I do think the change is probably better in the long term. So it's like one of those things that, like I just think the thing with Carolyn is I think she's good, but she hasn't really gotten anything too new. Before I get any further, yes, B tier is probably going to be our most populated tier here. Joe Diamond. I'm going to put Joe in the C tier. I'm going to put Joe in the C tier. I think he's very fun to play. I think he is very swingy in terms of how you are able to take advantage of his ability. It's like one of those things that it's kind of like Amanda, where if you do not build a good hunch deck, you're going to have a very bad time. I think Joe Diamond's biggest issue is that, I mean, it should be pretty obviously looking at his card, right? His defensive stats are awful. So he's very... he has a weakness that the game can turn, like, stick the knife in and like, twist it, which is like the Mythos phase, right? I do think that, again, kind of like Kelvin, I mean, I'm under the belief that the Mythos phase is not that scary anymore. So, like, you can just, like, tank it. So, like, to me, it's not a knock. I don't worry about it too much with Joe Diamond, but it is one of those things that you just have to be aware of when you're playing him. He does have, like, a pretty low floor that if it goes bad, like, it'll go bad for you. And I think that also comes with the hunch deck too. Again, like a hunch deck, if you do not build a good hunch deck, you're going to have an awful time. Because I think the reality is you want a hunch deck that you can play every turn. He also was the investigator that I played true solo this year, and he did great, but I hate true solo, so I stopped playing it. So thank you, Joe. You did great, but I just was not... True solo doesn't vibe with me. I don't like the deck building for it. Very fun investigator, though. One of my favorites. Preston Fairmont. Ones across the board. You get 4 money a turn from your family inheritance. Are those Joe Soul games up anymore? I did one on Patreon, but none of the other ones. I was just playing just to try it out. See if I had fun, and I did not. Preston Fairmont, I think it's cool. I'm going to give him in the B tier as well. I think, like, 4 money a turn to play events is very good, especially when Rogue and Survivor have a lot of good events. By the way, for the people in chat who were talking about Survivor events that gets more clues, I noted you forgot one of the strongest ones in the form of Look What I Found. You don't always get it. You don't always need to succeed to get a deduction, and I think Preston is a very good example of that, right? I think Preston can play a lot of variety in his decks. I think the issue with Preston, though, is that the last cycle was kind of illicit focused. So, like, Preston didn't really get anything new in the last year, which is unfortunate. I like the idea of investigators that have a card pool with restrictions. Like, I would have loved if Kate was the 0502 with no illicit cards. I think that would have been really cool. But I do think that if you have a really good deck building and a very memey style of play, maybe you should share your deck building with someone else, because I kind of want to play a Rogue Survivor that isn't Preston Fairmont. Spoiler alert, looks like the next one is as well. It's true. It's true. Like, Preston unfortunately ain't getting too much stuff, it looks like. Maybe, like, the cycle after we'll have, like, another big money one or an event-focused one that Preston can take advantage of. But it looks like these last two... Like, we had, like, Parlay with Alessandra, and then illicit stuff. So, like, not much for Preston to play around with. I still think he's very good, though. 4 money a turn is a very powerful drug. Diana Stanley. I'm going to put her in C tier this year, I think. Just scrolling through. I don't think she got anything too notable. I mean, like, again, she got Ancestral Token. She got the Rod, but, like, so did everybody else. So I think, like, to me, the thing that's keeping Diana from growing is that the cancels and ignores have kind of just stagnated, right? And I agree completely with the idea that canceling and ignoring the game is very, very good, right? It's very good. However, as I was saying with Joe Diamond, for me personally with Arkham, the game isn't scary enough for me to cancel anymore. I actually, I play Mystics now, and I don't run Deny or Ward in some of my decks, right? It's just like my style of play has changed for that kind of thing. Like, where I'd rather run a card that wins me the game as opposed to a card that does not lose me the game, right? I also now generally use denies for dodges, which are still good for Diana, right? I think she's still good. But I think that she is... I'm going to go back to some of the old complaints I used to have. That's because you can play mostly challenge runs, and enemies are the scariest things in those. I mean, if anything, in challenge runs, good investigators should shine higher, right? Like, that's kind of the thing, right? That's kind of like the metric for this. But even when I play, you know what, Holy Helicopter, I'm going to take a guff with that, because even when I'm playing, I play a lot of challenge runs, but I also play a lot of not challenge runs. Like, most of my gameplay are not challenge runs, right? Most of the stuff that I do are actually just me playing Arkham. And even then, I'm not scared of the treacheries or the enemies and that kind of stuff, because the card pool, like, the cards are just so good now, right? And like, when I'm playing challenge runs, I am losing, but that's, I think, just due to the nature of the restrictions put on this as opposed to the open conversation that we're having here about the full thing, right? About the full card pool here. So I'm not going to worry about that. This is I'm talking from the open-ended thing. So don't you try to put me in a box, brother, because I'm going to burst out of that box and give you an uppercut. I swear. But I'm going to go talk about what I used to talk about Diana Stanley in the past when everyone yelled at me. And it's that I think that her deck building is a little bit too on the rails for her to be particularly great. Like, I understand that thing about looping denies or wards or her signature are all very good things to do with her ritual dagger or whatever it's called. But at the same time, how much resources can you put into not winning the game not losing the game as opposed to winning the game, right? And that's kind of, to me, like the issue with Diana Stanley. Again, I'd rather win the game than build an investigator that scales up to win the game later by not losing. When Diana Stanley can scale up, because I mean, I think it is pretty easy to get her to 4 pretty quick. Like, you could do it in 3 rounds, right? But then it's okay. Yeah, I could have just played another Mystic and just done better with it. Marie Lambeau. Spoiler alert for Travis's tier list. I agree with Travis's sentiment that I think that we are harder on Marie Lambeau on this channel than we give credit for. However, I do also think that her ability is generally... I think it's the opposite is true. I think we're too hard, but I think other people are too positive on her ability. I think we all need to meet in the middle, right? I think we all need to meet in the middle to find Marie Lambeau. I'm gonna give her C tier though. I think she's sick. I think that she is, like I said, better than we give credit for, but worse than other people give her credit for. It's one of those things that I think that her card pool is fun. I think because she has the Finn thing. Her ability, the issue. I think I've said this multiple years in a row, but I hate high brain, high book mystics, and I hate how we keep getting them. Because what it ultimately does is it leaves one of your things in the dust. Right? And I understand we need like some variety in our mystics in order to make it so that we don't all go like blind from boredom. So like there weren't all just like Agnes where it's like 5 and then like low numbers, right? But like give us that 4-fist mystic, you know? Kagu should have been a 4x4. Yeah, I mean we need a 4x4, 4-1x4, 4-1-4x. I agree. I don't know why I said 4x4. It's because there's an X in there. But I think we got to get that mystic who has fist. And don't tell me is Agatha's probably another one of these, isn't she? Oh, she is. She's a 4-4. No, not again. No. Why? Why? Not another one. I want everyone. I know you were right. I know you were right about this, okay? When I was making my video, to be fair, Agatha's also a Seeker. So is Marie. I know she's not full Seeker, but everyone shut up for a second. I'm making a point here. When I made my video about Kate and how I wanted her to be the 05-02, everyone said that would be so stupid because, well, not everyone, a few bad actors that, you know, I have since eliminated. Not actually. That would be stupid because Trish has the same stat line as Kate. Can we just talk about that issue not actually being an issue when you were just looking to be important? Like I was when I made that video. I wanted to be important and you wanted to be important. But the reality is no one's important and they don't care because Agatha is just out here as a 4-4-1-3 again. No, I do think Agatha's going to be sweet, but I am so sick of that stat line. I think Marie's good, though. I do think that we are too hard on her. I think that's fair, what Travis said. Rita Young. I think she's a B-tier investigator. I think she's pretty legit. She got dirty fighting last year. I think the Sparrow mask is notably... I am a lot softer on the masks than I was earlier on. And I think that Sparrow mask is actually probably... I'd probably play that in Rita more than other Survivor investigators. She did get bricks. Like, Longshot was a really nice boost for her. Rita always just continues to get, like, nice... pieces to play with. The thing I like about Rita is that she can function on turn 0 and she can start getting stuff done. She's very similar to Keimani in that regard, right? Like where Keimani can start working immediately if things go bad. Oh yeah, Rita also got the hatchet. Good call. But I do think that Rita is like unfortunately never going to be like a super strong investigator because maybe never is the wrong word, but like generally the more efficient fighting methods or being rewarded for fighting is just going to do better than being just like consistent and like being able to deal with small things that might show up. I love me some Rita though. I used to hate her. Now I think I dig her. I think she's really fun to play. Grave Digger? Tommy Muldoon. This bastard is going to go into C tier. I've actually gone down so much on Tommy Muldoon this last year. I don't think he's bad by any means, but I think he has so many... this guy does have Roland stats. Why was everybody mad? Why was everybody beaking me for Kate and Trish potentially having the same stats? Good call, Holy Helicopter. Anyways, Tommy Muldoon, like, I don't think he's bad, but I think he is painfully, like, he has so many weaknesses, right? I think he has so many weaknesses that the game can just poke in you. His card pool is good, because again, he's Survivor 02, and that's a very good card pool. The whole build around Becky is fun, but it's fragile. I think he might see a boost in Drowned City, depending on if my prediction is true and he gets a lot of firearm weapons, right? His ability is good, but at the same time, like, I think he needs, like, I mean, like, maybe with the new card from where you draw and heal horror, it actually just eats so many draws that at a certain point you're like, can I please not use my ability? He's super tanky and can do a good guardian job. Yeah, but tanking doesn't win you the game. Like, tanking, once again, like, tanking falls into that thing where you don't lose, right? And, like, I think for me, personally, the reality is if you're dying to damage and horror, there's something going wrong with your team, right? At this point. If I'm looking, again, this video is me coming in with, like, my full personal Spike perspective, which is like no fun and very harsh on myself, where if things are going wrong, it's because I'm bad, right? And if things are going wrong, it's... You can make a hedgehog build pretty easily though. But yeah, can't anyone? Again, like, can't anyone? Like, what does Tommy have over that? He can put the stuff back into his deck, sure, but like, Will Yorick can bring it back, right? Like, Zoe can just, like, use card draw because she has that splash card draw that she can get into, right? Like, that's not special to Tommy. Like, yeah, you get paid your money back, right? But you're actually not making money on that. You're going to be playing it again in the future, right? Yeah, you can make your future draws bad. Like, that's the issue with Tommy. I just have not been impressed by Tommy this year. I think he's just... If he has another year like he did next year for me, he could potentially even go in D tier for me. I think he also really, like, I think the 4-fist is really felt. I think 4-fist now is felt more than 4-book. I mean, maybe that was always the case. Probably was. That might have been a stupid statement. But I think Tommy is not the best. The big difference with Yorick is that you need to draw and play your assets. Big tempo difference. Amen. Yeah. He can run Hunter's Armor and Survivor draw. Sure, but, like, what does that do? Like, what does Hunter's Armor do? Like, Hunter's Armor, I'm sorry, like, I love the card. I think it's fun to play. But, like, it's not actually a good card. It's not. Like, it's not worth the time. Like, just run something that wins you the game. Again, this video is all about the Spike perspective that's inside of me. And, like, in this video, Hunter's Armor, I think, actually is a bad card. I would not play it, right? And that's, like, where Tommy Muldoon comes in and... Because it doesn't actually do anything. Like, it helps you not lose, but that doesn't mean you win. So I think, unfortunately, like, that thing that Tommy has is... But again, every Guardian can play Hunter's Armor. He can't play the Survivor draw, but, like, the Survivor draw is... There's that one card that's the dilemma, but you can't control when you play that. So also, at the same time, it's not for me. I want to have full control if we're talking about that kind of thing. All right, Mandy. A tier? I'll be honest, everybody. I'm going to be honest. Okay. I'm going to pause. I'm going to answer this. I'm interested. From that perspective, it will be the most dangerous likely reason for scenario loss. If not damage, the horror, then what? Doom timer? No. It is actions. How efficient you are during your turn is the biggest cause of game loss. If you are losing the game because of Doom, or that kind of thing, it is how you are spending your actions. You are the reason for scenario loss. I'm actually, chat, I kind of want to put, I'm kind of feeling Mandy in B tier, which is crazy because she has 5 book, right? But She is just not improved at all, and I think she just continues to get worse as stuff comes out. She does still have 5 book, so it's very hard for me to, like, put her low, right? But, like, Mandy, you're on notice. I'm going to put her in A tier this year, but, like, if you go another year without getting, like, another, like, search effect, like, you're cooked, Mandy. Like, the 50 cards I think is fine. I think for general players, like, it's gonna be harder. If you're a toolbox god like Travis, it's not even a problem. Like, it's actually just like a boon. But the 50 cards is an issue for a lot of people who don't really like the toolbox play style. But, like, I think what's keeping her in A tier for me is just the 5 book. Like, I think, again, like, 5 fist or 5 book is going to be hard for me to put you lower than A tier. I lose a lot of scenarios, so now Justin's made me understand that I am at fault. It's the best way to learn, though, right? Like, it's the reality, right? Like, we can blame the tokens. We can blame the Mythos cards. Like, they're all things, but, like, you have the control in the most important turn of the game. So it's like, how can I get more tempo out of the game is, like, really what it comes down to. Like, for example, in the video that went up today where we got slaughtered in Dream Eaters, that was on us. We can't blame anybody but us for that one. I do think, again, she's going to stay in A tier because 5 book is hard to beat. But she's on notice. If she doesn't get an improvement, I might even put her in B tier just to maybe see if she straightens up, you know? Please publish more Travis decks so I can enjoy the game more. Why do you always say that, man? What's wrong with my decks? What's wrong with my decks? What's wrong with my decks? What's wrong with Bryn's deck? Well, Bryn's decks are crazy, you know? Like, Travis and I have a very similar build style. We're both very spiky players. You just like Travis more than me. You can say it. That's okay. You can say it. You don't have to be so coy about it. You can just say you like Travis more than me. I'm an adult. I'll take it. It's fine. I get it. I suck. I'm not special. I'm here every week. Travis only gets like 2 videos a week. I get it. I'm just a guy. Who's here. I get it. I totally get it. I'm just a guy, you know? I get it. Anyway, let's go to Tony Morgan. He's just a guy. I'm going to put him in S tier. This MFer can get shit done. This guy can crush it. He's a very good fighter. He's very good at fighting. His action efficiency is insane. He is going to somehow actually see a huge improvement in this next cycle. Like, if you thought Tony was good, let's just wait until this time next year when we have a full year of Drowned City cards with him. Because Tony is going to go crazy. Can we just already talk about Tony and the Luger, guys? Like, just Tony and the Luger is going to go nuts. Like, yeah, like he's like, that is, I already like McGlenn more. I mean, I do think that's fair. I think Tony is very boring. Like, from a Johnny or a Timmy standpoint, I think Tony is painfully snooze. But if you like to win and just do it in the most boring way possible, Tony Morgan is unparalleled in that. And again, he is only going to get better. Like, I showed on Wednesday, I showed Bryn the Luger, because I think the Luger is a great design, right? And then Travis said, just imagine Tony with the Switchblade and the Luger. And yeah, Tony with the Switchblade, the Luger, and the Garrote is gonna be fucking disgusting. Tony has not improved. I mean, he's not like, he's kind of just stayed as powerful, but he's definitely not like, he'll never get weaker. His just ability and his like stat line is too good, right? Tony maybe doesn't even need the Luger. He doesn't, but like just imagine how good he's going to be with it, right? When is Drowned City? Probably February, March, I'm going to predict. Tony's very good. We love Tony. I love playing him. Luke Robinson. I think I'm going to put Luke in S tier. So, a lot of people, when they talk about Luke, they talk about his gate box. And I do think that his gate box is very good. And I think it's one of the reasons why he's S tier. But I actually want to take some time to talk today about Luke Robinson's ability on his card, where you can play events at connecting locations. Because I do think that is often understated for Luke's ability to impact the game and do the broken things that he does. Yes, everyone has like the fantasy or the memory of, for example, Eric causing the Harbinger to be discarded with the Luke Robinson, right? And that's all very good. But like the thing that really makes Luke so powerful is his ability to be everywhere and anywhere. He breaks scenarios, he breaks things. He's just like one of those things that he is just like disgusting with that kind of stuff. Notably, I do think like Amanda, he has a higher skill ceiling to like really get to those things. He's like a character that you can like get better at the more you play him. So like he might not be S tier for you initially, and he wasn't S tier for me initially, as an example of someone who learned from our good friend Luke Robinson. Yeah, he's very good. So like even just like a simple example is like the shortcut trick with his ability is so just an example of Luke Robinson's ability to just be like the guy that he is. It's a very exciting way to play, and it's a very powerful way to play as well. So if you don't know like the shortcut trick, you use shortcut at a connecting location with his ability, and then you move to a connecting location from that connecting location, so you can move two locations, which, excuse me, in a lot of maps is like practically his gatebox ability. His gatebox ability is also very easy to like keep charged. Yeah, he's just a very powerful investigator. Patrice, I like Patrice. I'll always love, there was a patron who built me a Patrice deck because I wasn't hot on Patrice. And I played that deck. I'm going to put her in C tier. I don't think she's in D tier. I think she's in C tier. Potential benefit from the improvised upgrade suite. Yeah, Patrice is gonna feast in this next cycle because George Barnaby cares about discarding cards and like hand size and that kind of stuff. So like Patrice is gonna be really good with that. Already as well, she has the new ally. Haven't burned it like Robert Carlyle or something like that, or is that the actor? Am I mistaking him for the actor? Lawrence Carlyle, something like that. But she, with her violin, can discard cards on command, which is really nice for her to just get more resources out of it. It's going to be very nice for her. So the issues with Patrice, I think, are pretty obvious. Her stat line's not great, but she also is just kind of swingy. To quote Travis, she'll see her old deck, but maybe not when you want her to, right? Like, it's all those kind of things with Patrice that kind of just like make the experience with her tougher. I will say though, I think that her weakness is now super manageable, which is really nice. And I still think she is quite fun to play. All right, on to the starter deck investigators. We got Nat Cho. He's an easy A tier. 5 fist, great damage output, but has some weaknesses that stop him from being an S tier. A big reason for that is that While I think his requirement for the boxing gloves is generally overstated, it's still something that you just need to be aware of, is that you can sometimes just like have a little bit of a tougher time getting what you need at the right time, or like if you don't find your boxing gloves too early, you can slow down your like card advantage a little bit. However, I do think, again, like that's a little bit overstated. There's a lot of ways to find them, but it is just something that I think if you're just starting out too, you might notice those issues with Nacho. However, there are so many events that kill things now that it's kind of just like pick your poison and you'll be able to rock with Nacho and just kill things and have a great time doing it. He's a very good fighter. I think a big thing too is just because of his style, you feel like you always need to get like some big XP events, and that like unfortunately eats up a lot of his like exciting part of it, you know? Yeah. I mean, like, I think the Hunter's Mark card is going to be cool for him too. It's like stuff like that's going to be nice. Like I feel like Nacho is going to really, I feel like Nacho will get to S tier when people don't feel as compelled to always play boxing gloves with him. Because I think that you can build him without boxing gloves and actually do really well, but it's one of those things that like the card pool kind of just like wants you to, because it's still the most efficient thing to do with him. So when the card pool allows us to explore a lot of builds that don't need them, I think he's going to really shine with them. Runic Axe, it's true. But like, again, I mean, that is a good point. But at the same time, like, I don't know how much that does, right? Because like if I'm using Runic Axe or like Cyclopean Hammer with Nacho, why am I playing my events? Why am I playing Nacho, right? So it's like that same kind of point, you know? It's like, might as well play it on Mark, might as well play it on, honestly, fucking Zoe, any of them, right? Boxing Gloves draws cards, Runic Axe draws cards too. It's true. However, I think that's a little bit disingenuous because boxing gloves are not a draw, they are a search, which, as we know, for Mandy Thompson is generally just stronger. Harvey Walters, I had him at S tier last year. I'm going to put him in A tier. I think I was a little bit high and mighty last year. Drawing cards is really good. It helps you win card games. That's just like how it goes, right? But with that said, I think his card pool is kind of stinky. I think all of the investigators starter decks, I think their card pools are kind of stinky, except for like probably Winifred. Unlike most other people out there, I do not like upgraded secret cards. I do not think they are great. I think they're good, but I think their power level is generally overstated, and I think, again, the strongest part of the secret class is actually level 0. That's crazy, though, isn't it? It's crazy. But the it's one of those things that, like, I feel like I'm not really improving as much with Harvey Walters, because, at least in my play style. I think he's very good. I just don't think he's S tier for me this year. I think I just like spending a year with it. I feel like A is a better place for him. I think he's very powerful. There's not much to say. I feel like he's honestly probably at his best when he's helping. Excuse me. Throat's starting to hurt. I think he's at his best when he's helping his teammates with his ability as opposed to himself, which sounds crazy, but like when I made that support, the Unseen Side support video for Seeker Week, I think it really shone there. I think he's very good though. Like, he's close to S tier, but I think I'm going to drop him down this year. Winifred Hammermuck is also an easy A tier. She could also feasibly, if the sun was shining in the right direction and like the shadows were cast perfectly, I could see the argument for her being S tier for sure. I think she is a very, I think she's a very fun investigator, but I think she's also very powerful. The rogue skills are getting very good, right? And like they've been good for a long time, but they just keep getting better. It's almost as if like rogue is like now the secondary skill class. We know it isn't, but like you can tell that, I mean, you can actually tell it with George Barnaby, right? Like you can tell with George Barnaby what the 3 skill cards, skill classes are, right? When we saw his deck building. And it's one of those things that I think that Winifred is able to take advantage of that in a lot of great ways. Her draw is insane. Like the thing about Winifred is that in order to really tap into her true potential, you need to be committing every test to trigger her ability, and you're basically just going through your deck like crazy. Yeah, Bulldog was the newest notable addition to her deck. Very nice for her. I think Winifred's great. I honestly think give her 2 more years and she is going to be S tier easily on my tier list too. I could definitely see her going up there. Jacqueline Fine. I think she hasn't improved, but I'm going to give her A tier still. I think she is a very strong investigator. She used to be an easy S for me, but I think the card pool generally has made her ability more flat, as I've been. That's like the word of this year's tier list is flat. I really got to piss, so I'm almost at a break point, but I don't want to rush these investigators. Her ability to just draw the tokens that you want to draw, I think, are is a very good thing. Just drawing a little happy face over here, I guess. Her weakness is a little bit of an issue, but it kind of just turns her ability blank, which, as we talked earlier with Ursula and like versus Rex, it is actually a notable thing that I think I shouldn't gloss over as something that's okay. But it is one of those things that I do think that her weakness is also swingy. I've had times where it's gone away the turn after I drew it, and then I had times when it was like 4 turns after I drew it, and that is something that is, I think, like something to just be aware of when it comes to Jacqueline Fine's power level. Her deck building is unfortunately, again, a little bit poop soup, but I think the Mystic class, at least we've seen with these new designers, they're trying to get jiggy with it. You know, they're trying to be like a little bit like wild and interesting. Yeah. And I think that might help Jacqueline Fine out to be a little bit more exciting to play. Again, I think Mystics in general have gotten a lot of good stuff like that they kind of just like have always had. There's that classic video of like build a Mystic class, Holy Rosary, Shriveling, Rite of Seeking, Ward of Protection, Deny Existence, Arcane Initiate. Your deck has already got like 14 cards in it, right? So that's just kind of true for all Mystics. Okay, Stella Clark. So we have that the elephant in the room, which is the weird email ruling about Quick Learner. It's not in the FAQ, so we do not follow it here. We will follow the initial word of God as opposed to the word of the new God. So I'm not going to let that influence my decision here. But I do think that Stella has gotten worse. I do not think she has gotten better. I also do not think she has stayed the same. I'm just wondering if she's going to stay in A tier for me, if I'm going to put her in B tier. I think I'm going to put her in B tier. I think she's still a very good investigator. But I think that, like, especially with the... Yeah, she got worse in the sense that Tested Zero pushed everything aside. Yeah. Like, Daryl, even what Stella's doing, I think Daryl would probably actually still do better. Right? Like, I think Daryl has really warped, I think Daryl has really warped the, what survivors can do. And, like, the game hasn't really, like, caught up with that on the survivor thing. Stella and Rita together is wild. I mean, but, like, I guess the question is, what does Stella bring now that she hasn't brought for the last few years? Because the thing is, if we talk about what she's been able to do in the past when she was released, the card pool has gotten better, right? Yeah. She's kind of like, hasn't really gotten worse and still strong, but received nothing directly to benefit her playstyle. And as all the other cards have gotten better, her playstyle hasn't improved, so she has gone down in comparison in strength, right? I think she's still very, like, again, B tier is like all of good investigators. Like, even if we talk about Stella and Rita got Dirty Fighting last year, right? She got... What else did she get? She got Bewitching this year, right? So she can find her Dirty Fighting on turn enemy engagement, right? Stella has seen no improvement. I'm looking at C tier and all I see is good investigators? Yeah, basically these are all good investigators. This whole box here. Yeah. Like, Stella might still be A tier, but I can't think of anything that Stella has done to keep up with the power level that the game is currently at right now. Right? Like, when's the last time Stella got a card that Daryl can't play better, right? And I'm actually even, like, hard-pressed to think of a card that Stella got that I was like, I am so excited to play this in Stella. Like, I think even Scarlet Keys didn't get anything. Even Edge of the Earth, I don't think got anything, right? They're all cards that just other survivors could play equally as well as her. True Survivor, I guess? That came out years before Stella even came out. Like, that's been Stella's thing the whole time. Right? Yeah, like, Lifeline is a card that you look at that and you're like, I guess I'd play this in Stella, but then you also think, I don't think I ever want to play this card. Right? Yeah, because True Survivor is from Path to Carcosa. That was like a min card back in the day. And I think even like her Neither Rain Nor Snow, again, with my philosophy that the Mythos deck is not scary, I don't really need that card anymore. Like, maybe I can use it to help my teammates, and it's still good, and, like, that's still a function that we can do. Like, the True Survivor loop is still really nice. But I think she hasn't grown. So I'm going to put her B tier. I'm happy with it. I think it's, I actually honestly think I'm being nice to her. Now that I talk about it more, she has not seen any growth. There's so many investigators. Time for a slideshow change. I'm going to pause this video if you're watching on YouTube, but if you're also here, if you haven't done it yet, pause, go get a snack, go stretch your legs, and it's going to be great. So I'll see you in like literally a second, but pause the video, go get some snacks. All right. You need to see the slideshow. Sister Mary. So we're in Innsmouth, and we have only 34 investigators left to put in this tier list, and we're at an hour and 53. Sister Mary... I think the Sister Mary stands aren't going to like this, but I'm going to put her into D tier. Rustage, how's it going? I don't think Sister Mary is that good. I don't think Sister Mary is that good. And I think that she is unfortunately also just kind of like outclassed by the many parallel investigators that we got playing in the parallel investigators that synergize with blessed tokens. So I think unfortunately that Sister Mary is kind of just in the pits for me. She doesn't really have anything that's super interesting, and she doesn't really have like a nice like, I don't know, I just feel like she's very, her ability sucks. her ability, I think, was good for, like, the blessed stuff when she first came out. But then we got Ancestral Token, and everyone's like, everyone is Sister Mary now, you know? Like, that's kind of, like, the issue. Everyone is now who Sister Mary is, to the point that now, like, if you were playing, like, a full Bless team and you brought Sister Mary, you're actually kind of trolling because she's probably the worst at putting blesses in. Like, she could, but, like, her ability is just going to be like, oh, there's already 10 in there. Oh, there's already 10 in there. Oh, there's already 10 in there, you know? Yeah, so I think, unfortunately, what it comes down to is I think that ultimately the designers... I like parallel investigators, but there's too many of them now, and I think they came out with a lot of frequency, and then there was too many that were, like, bless focused. I know there was only 2. Well, there's 3 now, technically, because Wendy Adams also kind of eats Sister Mary's lunch a little bit, but not actually, because she kind of eats more Matteo's lunch, but I don't know. I think also, like, we're in, especially because we're in such a blessed, cursed environment, like, everyone wants to play with them because they were new from Hemlock Vale, but unfortunately, like, once you kind of see them one, you kind of see them all, right? I do agree that I think her deck building is good. I think she has a really good deck building. I think she has a really good, like, kit that she can do to support, but I think, unfortunately, is that her ability is now outclassed, and it's kind of like Skid, so I'm going to put her in the D tier. She actually reminds me a lot of Skids. I think she has, like, a higher ceiling, but I think Skids can also go really high. Again, these aren't where they live forever. This is just where they live right now. Speaking of where they live right now and forever, we got Amanda Sharp up in the S tier. I think that she is the strongest investigator in the game if you know how to pilot her, right? Like, if you know how to play her well, it's insane what she can do. I don't know how much I'm allowed to spoil, but I will spoil a little bit. Quick learner, Daniel and I, we are recording a series for his channel, where it's, we're doing 3 runs together. I gotta drink some tea, man. I'm losing my voice. But it's so hot. We're doing a run together where, we're doing a run where we're building around Cursed, a run where we're building around Blessed, and a run where we're building around Paradoxical on their channel. And I chose to do an Amanda Curse deck, building around the Cursed Tome, where if you have 5 secrets on it, you draw an Elder Sign. So you don't draw an Elder Sign, you draw from your deck, right? If you have 5 secrets on it. We've only recorded 2 scenarios, and halfway through scenario 2, I was like, okay, we're gonna win. Like, we've won this campaign. Amanda is just insanely strong. And she scales incredibly quickly. All she needs to get to a point where she starts to become problematic in terms of power is if she gets Perception 2 or Unrelenting 1. Those are, like, the first pieces that work really well for her. I think that she's a very fun investigator to play. She's probably one of my favorite investigators to play. But she is absurdly powerful. Like, she is just crazy powerful. That is a very fun run, and I'm excited for you guys to watch it all. That's going to be on Quickler's channel in the near future. She's so good. And, like, she can't, like, I mean, like, maybe they nerf her somehow, but, like, the thing about Amanda is because, like, she's like this, right? Like, she has the highest ceiling and the lowest floor, right? Like, so it's one of those things where, like, if you nerf her, like, with a taboo, it's gonna just hurt the floor so much more, you know? She also can do anything. Like, you can build, like, Combat Amanda and, like, nail it. There's also that funny thing where she can play Justify the Means without putting curses into the bag. That's a little bit of an issue. We might need to worry about that. She also, as I learned, you can actually put the tower on her. Like, you can also just put the tower on her with her ability. So you can get rid of it out of your hand that way. Amanda, like, breaks a lot of her weaknesses really easy. She has a weakness that punishes fast cycling. She's also dead. It's true, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, she's very powerful, but she also has, like, a lot of things that could just shatter her. But crazy investigator. Trish Scarborough is an easy A tier for me. I don't think she's S tier, but I think she's an easy A tier investigator. Getting an enemy as your weakness is super annoying. No, you just gotta get Transmogrify or Existential Riddle, and that enemy is gone forever. Yeah, and you're done. It's done. It's clear. Trish Scarborough, she's one of my favorite investigators. She's super fun to play. Any deck that you build with her is very powerful. She has a lot of variety in her builds. I think she has the strongest card pool in the game. And it's one of those things that she's just very fun to play. And, like, she feels powerful, right? But she feels powerful for the right reasons. You know? Like, you look at Mandy back in the day when you could play 30-card decks, you're like, oh, this investigator was just unfortunately poorly designed, right? Like, why does she have 5 book, right? With Trish, like, everything just hits right. The biggest issue with Trish from like a game balance standpoint is the fact that she can use, like, effects to nullify her weakness. That's kind of like the only thing that sucks about her from a design standpoint. But she's really fun. She's really flavorful. She's really cool. She's just like, there's a variety of different things you can do with her. Trish is a wonderfully strong, powerful investigator. And as the card pool grows, she seems to just be also just like growing with it, as opposed to growing along, like not growing, right? My only issue with Trish is that a lot of her decks are enabled by her deck building rather than her ability, yet her ability is too good to pretend it's blank. It's true. And that's kind of like why I can understand, and I definitely respect that issue. But I think that's also like why she is so good, right? Because she's not in a box, right? You actually can like build around her ability. You can ignore her ability and then just use it passively at multiple times. And if you use it multiple times, you're gonna like be happy about it. The evade in a pinch is huge, right? Like there is a lot to like about it. It does feel a little bit bad if you don't get full value out of it. I do admit that. But at the same time, like she gets up for it in other ways that it doesn't feel as like it like she doesn't feel it as much as someone like Ursula, right? But I think that's a very fair issue because I think it's true. But at the same time, like to go with what Holy Helicopter's saying, it does allow her to be more open, but it is kind of there's a little bit of dissonance there, right? Dexter Drake, very good investigator. I'm gonna put him in B tier. I think he's very fun to play. I think he was in my top 5 in 2024. I think something just clicked for Dexter one time I was playing him. Because I never really was able to make him work. And there was this great moment where I put a comment on a video. It might have been on a tier list where I was like, I don't get Dexter. And then Travis linked our expanded guide for Dexter to my comment, which was very funny. But I just was not able to put it into practice, right? But then after I played Dexter for like the 10th time, I was like, oh, I get it. And I had so much fun with him. I've had a recent discovery with Dexter and the, I think we clicked when you made the guy there. Yeah, because I had to do a deep dive on him, right? So I had to like really like study the MFer to make him to understand them for that video. So it definitely helped. But I did a recent thing where I was playing the, it's when we did the refractions challenge for Fantasy Flight Games. And I did the Summon Servitor with the Return to Hand. And I was like, I gotta tell Bryn about this, because I think Bryn would like doing that. That was a very fun deck to play with Dexter, because you could put in the Summon Servitor as a lightning bolt, return a card to your hand, or like, you know, like just play them and return a card to your hand, refill Scroll of Secrets, refill like something good. It was a very fun thing to discover. I think Dexter Drake is really cool, very fun investigator, really nice design. Silas Marsh. Okay. I need to separate like the ego and the id for a second when we talk about Silas Marsh. Because to me, when I play Silas, I can handle anything. But I can understand that people don't have that same level of success with Silas Marsh. Is it hot take to say that Silas is now S tier with long shot and strong armed? For me personally, yeah, I would say that's a hot take, because I'm actually probably going to put him into B tier. I'm going to put this guy into B tier. Like, he might be an A tier. You know what? No, let's do it. I'll put him in A tier because he did get long shot and bruiser, right? I was going to put him in B tier, but no, you're right. With Hemlock, he got some good stuff, enough to probably put him up in here. He finally has that vicious blow he wants. He is very good. It's like one of those things where, like, I've seen people be like, how do you play Silas? Like, they, like, just in, like, online discussions. And they're like, I don't get Silas. How does he work? And I look at it and I'm like, you just do it, right? Like, they show a deck list and they're like, I feel like this is missing something. And I'm like, do you got skills and a weapon? That's all you need. Like, it's all you need. Maybe play, like, one Cherished Keepsake or a Fearless, right? Get some Luckies in there. And just, like, Silas is like a crash course in learning value of cards, right? In your hand, right? He's going to teach you the levels on which your cards, when you commit one card, when you commit another. And also, I do not think he is as necessarily locked into Unrelenting like he was in the past. And I think a big reason for this is just that now with cards like Long Shot and Strong Armed, this is a great point, Valentina, and I should, this is a reason why I'm putting it in A tier as well, is that you get more value because you have Vicious Blow. You do not need to worry about it. You kill enemies faster, so you might like be able to play another asset that draws cards, or just find cards somewhere else. You know, like you take the time to do it. It's less of a crutch for Silas Marsh than it was back in the day. And yes, it's great to understand that having optimal assets is like better than having a lot of assets. And there was a conversation that someone had our Discord lately about how we would say that playing an asset is at a certain point, taking a play action to play an asset is the worst thing you can do, right? And people take it literally. It's like PBG says playing assets is bad, right? That's what they said. But no, in the greater context is, at a certain point, that asset in your hand is not worth the action to play, and you might as well just commit it. And I think Silas is like an example that can help players learn that. I should drink like Donald Trump. I love seeing him drink from a cup. It's so funny. All right, on to Edge of the Earth with Daniela Reyes. Yo, we have a big group of A-tier investigators coming, it looks like. A few, and then we're going to start hitting some of the lower tiers as well. Spoiler alert, Daniela Reyes is a great fighter. I think she's like... I think she has a lot of what she needs. I was going to say I think she's like one more survivor, a weapon away from being truly good, but I think I've said that for the last few years, like from being like one of the best fighters. But I think the reality is that she's actually been there for quite some time, right? I think the reality is that I remember the days when people complained to her and revealed that she was underpowered. Oh God, I hope we didn't do that. She says 5 fist. How can she be? She has like one of the best stat lines in the game. She's got a fucking Mandy stat line. She actually has like a better stat line than Mandy. Like, yeah, she only has like the 2 in the foot, but like she's built to soak. She's a tank, man. And she is like, when we look at Tommy, if we go back to talking about Tommy, about like how tanking doesn't win you the game, her ability actually tanks you and wins the game at the same time. And while she is, her card pool is worse than Tommy's, I'm not going to pretend it's better. She does have like a better ability, so you don't feel it as much, and it doesn't hurt that she has 5 Fist, man. Like 5 Fist is really good. She's a very fun investigator to play too, and she is very, very, very powerful. Norman Withers, I'm also going to put this guy into the A tier. I don't think he's S tier. I don't think he's S tier. He's very fun to play. His ability is very good. His card pool is alright. I mean, like, he has level 0 Seeker, which is really nice. But he has that weird, he has that weird, he has that stat line that I hate, you know, where you have, like, high brain, high book in Mystic, you know? Like, it's one of those things that, like, unfortunately, it's just a little bit, like, at a certain point, it's very hard for me to not play Divination and just, like, do better, right? I think, so, like, the thing that's keeping him out of S tier for me, if I had to look at Norman Withers, I mean, I think it's just, like, I think, like, it's base level power, right? Because I think all these guys can, like, do, like, base level broken things, or, like, they have, like, one of the highest ceilings in the game. I think he's very good, though. Like, I think, like, if there was A+, he would be an A+, right? I think so. Like, he's a very strong investigator. He has, him and, like, his signature and, like, the Astronomical Atlas is a very fun deduction loop. But then, again, you're just Rex Murphy, right? Yeah, the Bottomless Div, when I played that in, I think it was Oz? No, it was Wonderland. I brought him and Lily through Wonderland. And that was a very, very fun experience. It was a very powerful deck. And honestly, like, you're very hard pressed to make a Norman deck and have it, like, not be enjoyable. Unless, of course, you're Bryn and we have to only put events in it. Bryn's still licking the wounds from that one. I think I'm going to put Monterey Jack in the C tier. I think that he has, unfortunately, like, the wrong combination. I think that's interesting. He honestly has better draw than Harvey. That's an interesting thing for Norman Withers. You know what? I'm gonna sit on that for a year. I'm actually I'm gonna do some stress testing. That is a very interesting idea, and I'm gonna see. I want to try that out. Ezekiel Abaddon says he honestly has better draw than Harvey. I'm very curious. You know what? I'm gonna explore that. I want to see how that feels, and because you've piqued my interest. Because you know what, you might be right. The additional card each turn at -1 cost is a very powerful effect. Anyway, let's go back to Monterey. He's like, well, but what about me? But what about me? So Monterey Jack is like a bad Ursula Downs, because again, I think he also has like the worst like. There's no class that's, like, bad in their upgrades, okay? There's no class that it gets worse when they upgrade. That is impossible. But, I would have much rather had Unlimited Seeker 0 into Rogue 1/5, you know? Like, that's a lot more interesting and powerful. In Monterey, and then, like, you don't get, like, you have the one brain, you don't get, like, the rogue part to defend it, so you have to do the weird seeker thing. The 5 foot would feel better if he upgraded into rogue, right? And his ability is much worse than Ursula's. I think Ursula actually has like a good ability. I think Monterey Jack has an ability that you don't really you forget about more often than not, because it's just like sometimes awkward to trigger. Lily Chen. How crazy would Jack be if he was the 5/2 Rogue Seeker? He'd be pretty good. Oh, it burns. Not from a heat standpoint, from the ginger. Holy shit! That was a fucking. Oh. He'd be pretty good at 5/2 Seeker. I will say that there is some really cool thing with the Parallel Investigator, which we'll get to once we get to that one. B. I'm giving Lily a B. I don't. So there's someone. Roman in chat is saying Lily is the strongest edge investigator in their opinion. I think that's a very fair opinion. It's not an opinion I share, but I have I actually don't disagree with the sentiment of it. I think that actually is. I think she is a very powerful investigator. But I think Lily's issue is that I think other Guardians just do it better, right? I think that she's a very good investigator, so I'm going to put her in B tier, but I don't think she's like a great investigator for me after another year of playing with her. I think her level 0 is less awkward than it was before, mostly because of the addition of Runic Axe, but that came out last year. I think that there was some cool stuff that you can do with the upgrades that came from Hemlock Vale. Like the, I think like there's a pretty good like Blessed Lily build that you can explore. But like there's a thing that's kind of with Lily where it's the, I don't know, I feel like for me, like she's just like a good enchant weapon Runic Axe machine on like the one that lets you trigger it multiple times and you can like get a bunch of clues. And I always have fun playing Lily, but I also still just feel like I just feel a little bit like the damage output is less consistent than Daniela, Nat Show, Mark Harrigan, without like the really big upside of Will York. I think she's a cool investigator in how she scales, and I think she's always relevant. But I am going to put her in B tier this year. I think if there was an A+ tier and an A, she'd be in my A tier. But again, because people in our comments complained about the plus tiers, I decided, you know what? I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to take it out on the investigators. Sorry, I should show Lily on the screen. So unfortunately, Lily Chen is one of those people who are going to trend downward because of that. It's going to be really weird for our year in review. But luckily, those are always within the context of the thing. But I think she's very good. I think she's a very good investigator. Bob, I think I'm also going to put in the B tier. B for Bob. What can I say about Bob? I'm bringing Bob through my blind play of Dark Matter with Eric, which Eric has been loving, by the way. I think Bob is good, but I think Bob is probably the investigator that feels the Edge of the Earth deck building the most, right? Does the Scavenging Taboo hurt him enough? No, so I think Bob was actually more hurt by the Eon Chart Taboo, which was ages ago, right? But I think it's just one of those things that, like, I could see C tier. I wouldn't complain, to be honest. You know what? You got me. I'm going to put him in C tier. I'm doing you, Valentine. You know what? I think you convinced me. I'm going to put him in C tier. C for Cobb. So there was a really cool deck that Super Fang showed me back in the day. which was a Bob Jenkins deck that used Joey the Rat, Eon Shard, Scavenging, did a lot of cool stuff with it. And I played it, and I had a great time with it. The taboo happened on Eon Shard, and I think now Eon Shard is unfortunately a little bit poopy because of that. And I think that Bob is still like fun. There's a lot of cool things you can do with it, but I just can't shake the feeling that he is just awkward to build with his deck building, right? Like, do I think he would have been better if he was a rogue that built into a survivor? Yes. Do I think that flavorfully that would make more sense? Yes. Do I feel like you're kind of somewhat locked into horror soak or big money? Yes. So yeah, I think C is the right place for Bob. He also hasn't really got anything too crazy. And it's just because, again, like, I don't know, maybe if he was like a 3, like had 4 fist instead. It hurts, because I really like Bob. I think it's fun to play, but I think if I really just, like, look at this and, like, just get chunky with the numbers, this is the way to go. Bob can do Foot Matters with the Bulldog. He can. But, like, so many other rogues do it better, right? And, like, yeah, Bob can play the Bulldog for free, but I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think there's a lot of things you can do with Bob, and I think he actually is pretty versatile, but I think the things you do with him always just feel a little bit, like, awkward and slow, right? This is the 6th time we said we want a 4 fist instead for someone today. Yes, I think that they put too much into book and they should put it into fist instead. My presentation on book versus fist in Arkham Horror, made by Justin from Playing Board Games. All right, let's go on to Scarlet Keys. Carson Sinclair. All right, well, he's going to be at least, his floor is A tier. His floor is A tier, but I'm going to be honest, everybody. I'm debating S tier inside myself right now like a storm. I've never actually seen a Carson. Like, here's the thing. And I think I can't shake this perspective, okay? I can't shake this perspective because it can't be true. Like, what I'm about to say can't be true. But anytime someone has brought a Carson Sinclair to a game I've played, we've won easily. And admittedly, we win easily often, right? But I have never, like, Carson has just improved our win rate. Like, he probably improves your win rate by like 20%. You don't play him less than 3. If you play him less than 3, you're honestly trolling or trying to do some weird challenge. I think I'm going to put him in A tier. I don't think he's S tier for me yet. I'm going to put an A. I think I'm going to put him in A tier. I think he's very, very good, though. Like, he's knocking on S's door. He's clawing up there, being like, I think I need to do some shot. You know what? I actually might talk to Travis and Bryn to see if we want to do a run where we do, like, low-tier investigators, but one of us plays Carson to see. Because the thing about Carson is he basically turns into that person for an action, right? You can only play him as support, so I think he can ascend to S because of that. I think that's true to an extent, but at the same time, if you are so good at supporting, you might be worthy of an S tier. But that's just a theory. That's just like a hunch. You know, like, I don't actually believe that fully. It's just kind of like a thought process for this. I think I'm going to put him in A tier, though, but he's knocking on the door. Vincent Lee, I'm going to put in C tier. I think he's a very good investigator, but he's a little bit awkward. And I think that awkwardness kind of brings him down. Say it with me, chat. If this guy had 4 fist instead of 3 book, I think we would be having a much different conversation about Vincent Lee. But I do think that, like, he's unfortunately a little bit, like, hamstringed because of that. Him not having 4 fist, I think, was actually a mistake. I think, like, in theory, it checks out. He's a seeker. He should have 4 book. But I do think that, like, this actually should be. You mean Leo has a good stat line? I think Leo has a very good stat line. I think, honestly, Leo's weakness is actually his ability. Because you can only trigger it a certain number of times in a scenario. And then, like, you have to, like, put XP to really take advantage of it. If Leo Anderson also had, like, a Charlie Kane-like effect, you know? Yeah. I do think he's a very fun fighter to play. I also do really enjoy playing Vincent Lee, but I can't shake that the work that needs to go in to ensuring that Vincent Lee can hit those marks as the fighter. But I think he does play a competent fighter. Also, Vincent's skill is Sig is a skill, so I've never felt the challenge of his 3 fists. No, okay. It's true, but he doesn't need 4 book. Like you know, that's basically the same thing the same thing implies to what I'm saying here, right? Like, if he has 3 book, you would then say, but I also his Sig is a skill, so I never feel the challenge of his 3 book because I can get clues when I need to, right? He would be more interesting if he had 4 fist and become, I think, more gooder if that was the case. We also need to talk about his signature weakness, because his signature weakness actually is an issue, and I think it hamstrings him into surgical kit too much. I think we need more just generic ally healing that is efficient enough to run it. Oh my god, my throat. 4 book plus on the mend is 6 equals good. 3 fist plus weapon on the mend is also 6, good. I have a beef with that one. I'm having a beef with that one, okay? I think what you're saying is true, but I think you're being a little bit purposely obtuse about how numbers work for this game, right? Oh yeah, I guess so. It's for the thing, right? The clue drop heal is 3 is also good. That is true. That is also good. But it's the same thing applies. You need to play that card, and I think if you need to play a card, there needs to be more options, so you don't always need to play that card. It's like how people say you always need to play Cornered and Patrice. I think that is a design failure as opposed to a positive. Okay, back to the 4 book plus on the mend 6 equals good. 3 plus weapon plus on the mend 6 also 6 equals good. I agree, that is good. However, let's talk about this. You get you get multiple on the mends a turn if you're doing a crazy sort of like healing combo. It's possible, right? But you have to getting clues are not stressful, right? There's no stress in getting clues. You can just get clues. There's no punishment. If there is a punishment, it affects survivors and rogues more. You don't need to worry about it, right? With enemies, there's always a punishment. So generally, if the value of a clue and, in this example, a fight, both being at 6 is the same, the value is actually skewed in the favor of the clue there. And that's the issue, right? So, like, this is like the whole problem with old Arkham design, right? Where clues and fight and damage were dealt equal, right? Like, they were like an equal value. 2 clues equals 2 damage. But that was not the case. So that's why we now see that 2 clues is equal to 3 damage, right? And, like, that's, like, the thing. So, like, even though the numbers do go the same, and, like, those numbers are good, and they are functional, in the long term, when you're faced with more combats against enemies, it's going to be harder. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I disagree with the philosophy behind it from a game design standpoint is where I'm coming from. right. Kimani Jones. Also, Thousand Shows that just arrived. I don't agree with their whole D tier. This is wonderful. That's fine. You know what? I'm doing this for me. You can disagree as much as you want. I'll see you on Christmas, everyone who's commenting who disagrees. You know, it's the season of joy, but we're gonna yell at each other. Speaking of, people are gonna yell at me for this one. I'm gonna put Kimani in the B tier. I think Kimani's good. I think, like Rita, it's nice to have an investigator that is good to go on turn 1, right? Like, they can, like, if an enemy comes up and people aren't set up, Kimani has it kind of built into their kit natively. I think there's a lot of cool things you can do with Kimani. The microscope, the new one, is a very fun thing to work with. However, it's really bad. So when I said that you can like manage, like you're good at level, like you have the built-in enemy management at like turn 0, that is good, but it's so bad, right? It's like so bad. It's so hyper inefficient. And then you get the tools that make it more efficient. Like Kimani with pickpocketing goes to the fucking moon. We can all agree on that, right? But that's a card you need to find, a card you need to play, a card you need to like commit, right? Like, or like you need to find things to commit, right? Like you need to like get all these things to like start getting there. And then you have Nat Cho, who just plays one event and does what you did, but better and quicker and faster. And that's kind of like the issue when it comes from like a pure power level standpoint for me. I do think Kimani Jones is a good investigator. I do think they have a very good ceiling. I think, yes, they are good with the microscope, but I don't think microscope is great. I think it's, once again, a lot of investment that you can just, like, if we're looking at this from a pure spike standpoint, I'd rather just, again, these are just better, right? Like, this is just better for me than that, you know? I think Kimani's a great flex. I think Kimani can get the job done, but I think I'm going to put Kimani in B tier. I think also Kimani is, like, it's kind of like parallel Ashcan Pete, where there is that weakness when it comes to elite enemies, but I think they have a lot of backstab, sneak attack, like there's a lot of tools to get there. Also just like a weapon. Like British Bulldog with Kimani was a really nice piece. And Kimani I think will get better as it goes. But I think Kimani, that's what's keeping Kimani in B tier for me personally. That can change though over time. I think Kimani, like they have a lot of room to grow. I think what hurts is that when people play Kimani as a flex as top 3 fighters. It's true. It's true. But even in this very conversation, we have people talking about microscope, which I understand people people can say, no, but it's actually not a flex tool because I'm defeating the enemies and I'm just going to grab a few clues when the time comes. I don't know, that sounds like flexing to me, right? So like that's kind of the thing that even in this very conversation, I agree Kimani is better as a fighter, but I think as Kimani as a fighter, you probably don't want to be spending that 4 experience on a microscope, and rather you would grab weapons and some other things, right? I think Kimani is better when they're hyper-focusing. But then, this is the problem, right? Because if you're going to get the Culver and you're going to play microscope, you need to be spending your actions to evading enemies, and then your other Culver is like, okay, well then, or your goon is like, but you're managing that enemy, I'll kill this other enemy. Oh, there's 2 enemies, I need you to deal with this one enemy to protect our Culver, and it's just like, or like, you know? There's a lot of like weird balance that comes with it, and Kimani I think is a lot more complicated, and I think finding the optimal deck is going to be harder as the grand scheme of things, which also kind of like makes their power level fluctuate a bit for me. Again, if there was an A+, Kimani would be in the A tier. But I think Kimani is trending down, just like how Finn is trending down, you know, just like how Lily is trending down, like just how Stella is trending down for all these, just because we removed the mid tiers. So if you want Kimani to be in the A tier, you can blame all the people from last year. Or you can blame me. That's fine too. I can take it. I'm an adult. Amina Zidane. Amina Zidane's not F tier, but I'm going to put her in D tier right now. I think Amina Zidane has the potential to be there, because her ability is so good. Russ, you're yelling at me. I think Amina's ability is a very powerful ability. But I do think that unfortunately, she is missing something to give her a little bit more of a boost. I'll say it every time. This is like a big in before. I want to be in before we get to like that super big pop-off where Amina is going to get there. Because I think that the 3 stats... I mean, like, this could just be hopium, right? Like, even the statement of she just needs 1 more charm, that sounds like a little bit of copium, right? Like, it might be, and that might just be the reality of the situation with her. She might never be good, but I think her ability is good enough, like, just, like, saving 3 resources, right? And, like, there's a lot of ways to fix the Doom. There's the very easy Sin Eater crutch, right? There's the very easy thing of Sin Eater. There is, the just having cards that discard, right? A non-backhanded question, what do you even imagine her being played as for not F tier? Normal Mystic mono deck? Some special Amina sauce? Okay, so what's keeping her out of these tiers, out of this F tier, is that she has a good card pool. She's, I mean, like, to me, also, the best Amina deck plays the Dream Diaries. Like, that's where, like, the event-slinging Dream Diaries are very good. But the reason that she's not an F tier is because I think she has an ability that is actually relevant to the game. I do not think Jenny Barnes' ability is relevant. 1 extra resource does not equal 3 extra resources, right? Jim Culver's ability is just 0 on some tokens. I don't think that's a relevant enough ability. That's the big dividing line. I think if Amina had an ability that sucked, she would be in the F tier, but I think Amina actually has a very strong ability. And I think that's the thing that's keeping her into D tier for me. It's her ability. Her ability is a very strong ability. And the other thing, and people might not believe this, I've actually seen Amina do better than some of these other investigators that are in tiers above her when people bring her. Like, it's one of those things that just, like, really makes her, like... that's the thing. I've actually not seen her do terrible, right? When we brought the all threes, she did struggle there, but everyone did, because we also had Jenny and Lola, right? The whole thing was there. Yeah, like, yeah, once you get the Sin Eater, she becomes, like, a lot more consistent. But, again, I don't think you need to do that. And again, this all might be hopium, and like I said, next year I might be like, nah, she's bad, put her in F tier, right? But it's just her ability. Her ability is incredibly relevant. And, like, I've not seen her bomb. I've not seen her excel, but I've not seen her bomb. Because, again, you just save 3 resources on something is huge. Like, that's huge. I wish she didn't have all 3s in her stat lines. Honestly, give up on it. I think that, like, yeah, and, like, also, Astute's right. You're with, like, I think a lot of people look at Amina and you're like, I'm going to use it on every asset I want to play. But the idea is that you, like, you place Doom on the asset you want to save money on to play for an asset that you don't want to put Doom on, right? You mean bomb, like, advance an agenda 4 turns earlier? Yeah, I mean, maybe that happened. It's like, it's one of those things that, like, but that's the risk of Doom. And I think, like, it's, if that's ever happening, I think that falls more into the players, but it could. Should she have been a 4-4-1-3-2? No. Honestly, I would have killed her for a Saphina stat line 4-2-2-4. That could have been fun. I love her flavor. I think she has potential, but I think she's also, like, on the edge of slipping. Yeah. There's a lot of things that I think, unfortunately, they just... It doesn't help. It doesn't help that the Doom charms are all... I mean, Dowsing Rod's fine. And Onyx Pinnacle is actually playable, but... they're ass. And it's kind of unfortunate, right? It feels like something happened with Amina in playtesting, and it probably came down to Sin Eater, right? Something with Sin Eater just like changed things. Daryl! He's at least A tier. People say S tier for mere delusional. These two comments are so funny. Daryl is the clearest, S tier in my mind, and then the comment after, A tier, people who say S tier for me are delusional. I tend to agree, Valentine, that I tend to agree. I always never got the S tier side of it. Should just zoom out so people can see this a little bit better. Okay. So I'm gonna put this MF for an A tier. I'm just like trying to find the words for it of what's separating it, and I think okay. Do you want to know the reality? I've only played Daryl, I think, twice in a campaign. But I've seen Daryl... It's the same problem. I've seen people bring Daryl, but I've never been, like, blown away by Daryl. I've been blown away by Shadowlight. But the problem is anyone can play Shadowlight. Daryl plays it the best, right? But again, most of the time, when people use Daryl, they are reducing the value of tests to... And if they're not doing Shadowlight, which again, we're not talking about Shadowlight here, they're doing it to not win, to not lose, as opposed to win. And to me, that is like the biggest dividing factor of power, right? If an ability is used more often to not lose, then like, why do I care? Because to me, in my playstyle and what I look for in an investigator, everything I need to do should be to win the game. If I am spending time and effort to like play soak or like do that thing, it's like that to me is where inefficiencies exist. Like that's where like I am being not good. And I'm not saying that's the case across the board, you know? And one second, I gotta ask this for everybody. When they're saying that, like, he got tabooed, like, are you talking about just the changes in XP? Because that's not a taboo, motherfuckers. That's not a taboo. That's just, it slows you down, but you can still do the crazy thing. And this game still gives you XP like candy, right? Like, to me, chaining doesn't do anything. Mutations, were these things, are we talking about mutations, or are these just chains we're talking about? Because, like, chain taboos, they do not change the equation. Yes, his camera is very slow. I agree, his camera is very slow. No, it's still on the taboo list. No, I agree. I'm not saying you're wrong about it being on the taboo list, right? But I was just trying to make sure I was on the same page as what everyone was saying in chat. Because, like, to me, those aren't nerfs. Those are just, like, it just slows you down, but, like, those don't actually do anything, you know? The clue drop one is mutated. Change in my mind because it makes your early deck weaker so you collect less experience early, but it's so easy to full clear first scenarios, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, you get so much... It's so easy to do well in an opening scenario now, right? Chain does not affect Scenario 1 a lot. It really doesn't. It really doesn't, because if you want to scavenging, just take in the thick of it. Like, that's the thing that I don't like. And XP also is just giving out, like, candy. It's, like, so easy to get XP. Like, to me, like, the chains are basically nullified by in the thick of it. This motherfucker is going to A. We can at least go there. That's easy. Yeah, because he's also a 5-book in Seeker Access. You can't beat that. That's the thing. Like, I don't vibe with the chain.
I think also think it hungry. So you're talking about Bob earlier being X hungry. I mean, to me, Bob is an XP hungry. Bob upgrades to 2 different archetypes, right? Like that's the thing. It's still the same, but it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun first. Now I have to wait half scenario of XP. But we're not talking about fun. I'm talking about power. Like there's no fun in this conversation for their rating, right? But also, like, yeah, like the whole thing, he doesn't care about true shroud locations. They're all 2 shroud to him. But he also has 4 book, so you can just play magnifying glass and like get to 7, which he's very good at. Yeah, I don't see this guy as S tier. But I also don't see like him nerfed because of the Shadowlight. Like it was nice to have that on scenario 0. But I don't think it not being in your deck is going to cause you to get less XP in scenario 0. All it means is that you're going to end the Doom with 3 more Doom on it than you would otherwise, right? The biggest argument for Daryl's is ability versus failed by treacheries. It is the nicest thing to use his ability on if you're not doing tested 0. I agree with that completely. The ability to make your Rotting Remains or your Grasping Hands only 1 is very nice. It's very nice. But again, that goes to my point of winning versus not losing. But I mean, like, that does make you, I don't know. I just never really see that as like a big argument in terms of power, and rather just like a nice benefit. The limit on research notes is a hard taboo on him too. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. However, I do think that people, I do think that I think that this is a whole different conversation. The clue drop was, the tempo was overstated, is all I'm going to say. Is all I'm going to say. I think the taboo was ultimately unfounded, and I think the clue drop on tempo was actually overstated. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Like, I don't want to get into it here, but it is my belief that clue drop was less good than people thought it was. And it did not deserve the taboo. I think Daryl's an A tier though. He's very powerful. Great card pool. Charlie Kane, I finally played him. I played him in a sealed run with Daniel from Quick Learner, and I had a great time. I think Charlie Kane is... This guy should go into the V tier for Vampire Hunter, but you know what rhymes with V? B. I'm going to put Charlie Kane in the B tier. And the reason for that is I think he is a very good investigator, but I think that he is a little bit fragile. If someone put him in A, I would be like, yeah, hell yeah, we love Charlie here, right? Do you know what rhymes with A? Okay, let's kill some vampires, you know? But I think that he is more cool than he is great, you know? I think he can be very powerful, very fun, but he also can flounder, fall apart, and explode. And just that lack of consistency to ensure that you hit what you need to hit makes him harder for me to put him in the A tier, personally. But I think he's a very cool investigator, and I think he's a good time. Wilson Richards. I'm going to put this guy in the C tier. I'm not going to have too much to say about these people. I actually wonder what I put them in last year. I'm actually curious. I want to see what I gave each of these investigators last year. Do I have that? Not easily findable. So I think Wilson's Richards' biggest issue actually lies in a similar place to Keimani, where a lot of people build Wilson as a flex, but I think he's actually better if he focuses one way or the other. I think Wilson's weaknesses are very apparent, where you have 4s in your stats, but not all the time. You have a really cool signature that you can't find, and his card draw is abysmal. His weakness is pretty much non-existent. So actually, I played when I played him in my Blind Feast of Hemlock run. I had a sledgehammer and I had my weakness in play, and I was still swinging at like 10. So I think his weakness is a little bit soft. I wish his ad hoc had a way to find it. I really wish it actually just started in his opening hand. I think that would have been really cool. I think he is a little bit on the... yeah, I do think him being in D tier also can be like an issue. Like I think that, sorry, not an issue. I can definitely get behind that. But to me, it's because I played him as he morphed into a mono fighter, and that was very efficient with him. It actually worked really well. About on par with what I'd see from Tommy, so that's why I'm going to put him in the same tier as that. And then I think building him as like a main Culver with Fingerprint Cannon Lantern would also do really, really well. Okay. Kate Winthrop. So I've actually played Kate twice this year, and I saw Travis play Kate. I'm not that impressed by her, to be honest. Oh, yeah, good boy. Come on. What am I going to do with Kate? I think I'm going to follow my gut. She's still new, so, like... this is the time to explore and see where they fit in, you know? I'm going to put her in C tier. I think she's pretty well balanced. Her ability to get +2 on test is really good, but it's also, she has a weakness that will fuck you up. It will make you have like a bad time when you draw it, probably, which I think is a good balance. I think she's like, it's a very nice design. And it also makes me want more weaknesses with tests on them. Like, I'm surprised that she was the first, you know? But it's really, yeah, it's, I hate her deck building. Like, I hate it. And it's not because I feel slighted that she... It's not that I feel slighted because she is not the rogue. But I do think that she would be a lot more interesting and a lot stronger if she wasn't just like another tee-hee, I'm an 05 Seeker, you know? Like, there's so many of those that are just like hiding in this game. That's just unfortunate. I think she's cool, though. She could go up in time, but I think for right now, I just was never blown away by her. I think she's fine, so I'm going to put her in the C tier, which is like a little bit better than fine. Like, these are like fine to good, right? This is ass to ass. This is ass to okay. This is okay to fine. Okay to fine. Yeah, it's like all the way up here. Yeah, like if she gets some science cards that's interesting, that'd be cool too, right? I've heard people say that Duke implied that they might visit the idea of tabooing traits. Speaking of her deck building, I hope that Arkham will never be the same as the release of card packs with player cards in between being boxes. Can I make my... I can't take credit for the ass-to-ass. I'm referencing the joke that Pax made in our Discord channel recently. I'd love to take credit for that one, but if I can make my called shot of what the Arkham will never be the same is, I feel like we're going to get one campaign a year, and then 2 investigator boxes that are smaller throughout the year. That is my guess. I imagine we're going to see the same number of cards, but it's going to be spread out. So we're going to get like campaign, box, player box, scenario, player box. And they're going to be like smaller player boxes. That is my thought. I actually honestly would love that because I think people like talking about player cards more. So it'd be really fun to get more of those. Alessandra. I mean, she's a rogue. Pretty sure we already said that comment was related to the ultimatums and stuff. It's true. That is seemed to be the implication. But there also was, in all fairness, Dice Gods, there also was in the announcement article a statement that there were changes coming to the product line that we would hear about in the future. So that's what I'm basing that on. Not so much the hype line, because I always thought that that was just going to be like a hype line, but specifically the comment about that there was changes coming to the product line soon. So that I just think they're going to change the release order, like the release schedule slightly. All right, Alessandra. She's a rogue, so she always has that roguey goodness, but does she play it better than other people? And I think the answer to that is probably no. I'm going to be going... This isn't the video, but assuming a new... Actually, I can't talk about this because it's going to do the video. But I don't think it's going to be about... I think it's going to be a lasting thing. I think we're going to be changing the release format slightly is what I'm expecting. So what we know now is not going to be the case, and I think it's going to be continuing ahead. But this is not the video for that. I promise I'll make another video talking about that if people want it. Anyway, Alessandra Zorzi, I think I'm going to put in B tier. Honestly, the parlay stuff puts her in such a box that I think is really unfortunate. I understand that like a parlay investigator was a long time coming. But doesn't necessarily mean that they're good. I don't think so. You could probably take an exact... Oh, Russ, God, you're just claws. We need to trim them. You could probably take an exact Alessandra deck with no changes and give it to Trish and it wouldn't get much worse. Yeah, probably. And, like, that's kind of the thing, right? Where... I just don't think the extra action to parlay is that exciting. I think Beguile is actually, like, worse than we all thought it was going to be. And I think, unfortunately, the downside is Alessandra actually killed a lot of player cards that I think would have been good if they weren't. Because, like, the issue is they all seem to be designed around Fine Clothes, right? Which is funny because Fine Clothes doesn't exist in that box. But it's like one of those things where all the numbers just feel a little bit off, right? Yeah. And yeah, she's also enemy management that cannot deal with bosses similar to Keimani. And she also has like a really weird issue where like I'm enemy management, but at the same time, I want clues, you know? So I think I'm going to put her in B tier. Again, this is all like preliminary stuff. We don't have that much deep stuff to put on these. We're actually nearing the end of this video, which is good because it is almost 3 hours, buddy. It is almost 3 hours. All right. Kohaku Narukami. Good old Kohaku. Good old Kohaku Narukami. I love this guy, and I would have loved him a lot more if I was talking about him before Parallel Father Matteo came out. Unfortunately, I do think Parallel Father Matteo kind of ate this guy's lunch. I am going to put him in the B tier, though. I think he's on the higher end of the Hemlock box. Four Fist. Yeah, it would have been cool if he had Four Fist. So, like, I definitely think the criticism of Hemlock Vale's box was very fair, where it was like, each investigator is so linked to, like, a specific thing that it kind of just separated the box, right? It's like the difference between making an investigator that's like, I investigate. And well, actually, I think it's a good thing to think about, right? Like, let's look at who we have seen in the Drowned City, right? Actually, maybe it's not a good example. But I mean, like, the thing about this is that there was like so many like design. I mean, maybe we actually might be seeing this again in Drowned City, and I hope not. But like, there's a big difference between like Trish and Alessandra for what they require for the player cards that come out in that cycle, you know? And I think that's like a big thing, that it's a very fair criticism of Hemlock, where so many pieces were eaten up by these things. I think Ohaku is pretty cool, though. I think he's a good investigator, but I don't think he's particularly great, so I'm going to be putting him in the B tier. And again, I'm kind of disappointed that Father Matteo ate so much of his lunch so quickly. Because there's a deck that I built with Kohaku that was really cool. That was all about pulling bless tokens, and then Father Matteo Parallel came out and just destroyed it. Hank Samson. All right, so now I gotta really find God within myself, because there's a thing where I said earlier in this episode that 5 in an active stat is very hard for me to put below A tier. But I actually think Hank is not that good. And it all stems from the fact that I feel like this mother fricker should have had a lower stat line, but let you soak on any other cards you control. I'm going to put this guy in B tier. He has 5 fists, so he can't be that bad. I am going to put him in B tier. And I can't really put it into words for why he's there, but he just feels... He doesn't have an ability. The bonded thing is cool, but it doesn't actually matter. His deck size is 35, which I like on like George Barnaby, because his card draw is going to be insane. But it just seems like a weird like balancing act for Hank. So I think if I can offer criticism, if I can offer criticism of the Hemlock Vale Investigator expansion, I think the player cards are actually all quite well designed. But I think the investigators, unfortunately, didn't do it, you know? Luckily, I do think the investigators in Drowned City look a lot better. I think the investigators in Drowned City look a lot better. But I think the investigators in Hemlock Vale are, unfortunately, not it for me. And I think Hank is just an example of another one of those. With that said, I think the Drowned City ones look freaking awesome. Yeah. We'll see how Hank is after another year. I don't think he's going to get much in this next cycle. Like, I mean, having an upgraded improvised weapon is going to be kind of sick. The problem with Hank is, though, I feel like it's actively wrong to rush to one of your bonded sides. But then it's like, why play Hank? And again, it's, yeah, exactly what I was saying, like, for the Tommy issue, right? Like, his tanking damage is not going to, like, help you win the game. Like, if we got something super interesting on his other side, where, like, the damage version was, like, dealt damage, and, like, the horror version got clues, like, now we're talking. And then, like, because it's limited. And then if they just, like, removed any move, but just only had, like, Stout-Hearted, I don't know. Gloria, S tier. We love Gloria. She's very boring and very broken. Russ, I need to move my leg. My foot's falling asleep. This is our last. We have to mourn for a second. This is our last tier list where we get to talk about Gloria without knowing what her true signatures are. Hi. Hi. I feel like I've said this 1,000 times. She actually has gotten, like, no support, but it doesn't matter because her ability is still so powerful, right? Try her without Alyssa? Why would I do that? Why would I not want 5 book and just being able to use my ability every turn in a lightning bolt action, right? I'm very curious to see what her signatures are. It was worth a shot. GG next. I mean, it's true. Like, if you complain that Gloria is boring, try something new with her, right? Like, try her splash and do something with it, because the splash, her deck building is one of the most powerful ones in the game, right? It's like, explore that. If you want to be a spike and just go crazy, like, why not, right? But I don't know, she's just so powerful. I'm very curious to see what her upgrades are. Someone said in the comments, because I made a video predicting Drowned City stuff, that apparently MJ said Gloria has not changed from the original design. Honestly, I'll buy it when I see it, and also at the same time, it's the word of God. You take it at face value all the time, right? Because we actually don't know if what's true or what's not. You trust it, right? But if they haven't changed Gloria from her original design and she has not been down-tuned, we have a problem, right? Like, there's an issue. Like, then there's an issue. Isn't there, buddy? Yeah. All right, let's get to the parallel investigators. These ones should be pretty quick. Again, I said this 3 hours ago, but these investigators are... Russ, you're going to make my shirt all fucking hairy, aren't you? Dude, you're shedding so much. Jeez. These investigators are treated as if it was parallel front, parallel back. Mixing and matching is not part of my power level conversation here. Just for simplicity and just so I don't have to have... Because if I wanted to do it by splitting, I would need to have multiple versions of each of these. And as always, I don't like to spend too long on these. Parallel Roland, I'm going to put in C tier. I think he's very close to regular Roland. I think the two of them are pretty, like, on the same page in terms of one another, so I'm going to put them there. I still have not played Parallel Roland in a campaign, mostly because the memory issues would be too much for me playing two-handed solo. I would fuck up the whole thing, and it would not be a fun time for anybody. But I think that his deck building is cool. I saw there was one of our patron viewers brought a Roland Banks deck that I thought was pretty cool, a parallel one. I think there's a lot of cool things you can do with it. Parallel Daisy, I'm going to put her, honestly, in F tier. Especially with the geared up nerf, which I think was unwarranted. It makes her, like, there's no reason to touch her, I think. I don't think they should have nerfed Geared Up. I think Geared Up as a high swing, low swing was actually a super fun card. So I'm going to put that in there. Parallel Agnes. Oh, yeah, they switched again. I'm going to put her in the B tier. I think she's below regular Agnes now. Just because... Again, this is a product of... This is a product of the tier list changing its tiers. But, I think a big thing is that, like, she's cool and the spell slinging is very good. But it's cool she has her health and sanity switch. Yeah, no, I think Parallel Agnes is like the best design. But Travis, some slight spoilers. Oh my god, I'm covered in cat hair. Travis did, he said some things about Agnes that really the parallel Agnes that really resonated with me, right? Which is, it's just like, how do I put this? How do I put this? Because it's like, it feels right to me. Like, I look at this right now, and even though I can't find the words, all right, time to go. You can't scratch the computer, buddy. See you, buddy. Even though, like, I don't know the words, it feels right that she is a tier below regular Agnes. And I think the reason for that is it really boils down to the upgraded Spectral Razor and Read the Signs. Don't break my heart. Why would I break your heart? B tier is still, there's a lot of great investigators in B tier, right? And it really comes down to the upgraded Spectral Razor and Read the Signs, right? Where those cards see no value in Parallel Agnes. She's more than happy to run 4 Spectrals? No, man. That seems bad. Why would I run 4 Parallel Spectrals? Why would I run 4 Spectrals in Parallel Agnes when I could just run 2? And, like, still probably see them in equal amount. That's the thing, right? I feel like it's just like, I can't describe it, but this just feels right to me. I do think that regular Agnes is better than Parallel Agnes. And it's because I think Agnes actually won more than Parallel Agnes in the recent sets. I think they're very good, though. Like, they're both great investigators. Like, I know she got that new card of touching the guy's head while he's sleeping in bed. And, like, that's very good for her. But, like, I still, this just feels right. Redundancy is good, especially since she struggles with elites if you go full events. So you're admitting she struggles with elites, huh? Well, wait a minute. Are we there? Are we starting to see the holes in Parallel Agnes Baker? You need to run 4 copies of a spell to deal with your weakness? That sounds crazy. Yeah, no, honestly, that actually sold me on it. That is a great point. I'm happy with this. Yeah. Let's go. All right, Parallel Skids. I think I'm going to put him in the A tier. I think he's a very good investigator. I think he's much better than regular Skids, obviously, because he's much different than regular Skids. I need to zoom out again, huh? Holy heck. It's going crazy up in here. Let's go like that. Perfect. Yeah, his ability to, like, have it so that he has tested zeros are really good. A test on command is really good, especially when it's like a foot test. It's not actually a foot test, but like being able to commit foot icons to it is very good. He plays big money, probably the best. He hasn't really seen anything that improves himself. Like, the thing is, like, the British Bulldog wasn't really huge for him because he already, like, was pretty good user of most other weapons because of it. But he hasn't gotten worse. Well, he hasn't gotten better. He certainly hasn't gotten worse. Parallel Wendy. I think I'm going to put her in the C tier. I don't think she's particularly good. I think she has so many words on her. And all those words, while they sound nice together, don't actually, like, do anything. So I think a big thing is that she has now been, like, in my opinion, outclassed by Kohaku. and like parallel Father Matteo, even like parallel Jim, and even like parallel Rex. I think all the other parallels do really good. I still think she's the winner of like messiest design, except for maybe Jim Culver. Parallel Jim Culver is a little bit like over designed too, but I think Wendy Adams is worse because it's just like, for me personally, like, I don't get why you would do any of it. But we're not here to talk about design. We're here to talk about power. And even then, like, I think it just goes to show that she is not like a particularly powerful or interesting investigator, because no one actually really talks about her, right? Yeah, C tier. I don't want to spend too much on parallel investigators. They aren't really real. All right, so these are all... no, we had parallel Zoe last year. We had parallel Zoe, Jim, and Ashan, I think, last year. Parallel Zoe... I think she's good. Albeit her song and dance... I'm going to put her in the B tier. I think her song and dance is a little bit less impressive than you would hope it to be. I think a big thing about her is that like she can use Ancestral Token really well, and like that's really good for her. But like I think she feels her card pool quite a bit. I think like not having the high level Guardian cards, unless they're blessed, but not even like the highest blessed cards, is like really unfortunate for our good friend Parallel Miss Samaras. How to put it into words? These ones, I don't really think about the parallel ones too much, to be honest. People bring her to a lot of game days, and I'm always like, she performs like pretty admirably, but not enough for me to be like, wow, you're on the lines of Daniela. I think this is pretty fine. I think she's the best bless in the game. Impossible. Parallel Father Matteo exists. I think she's the second best bless in the game. But I think Parallel Father Matteo is better. Yeah, I think, again, I'm just going off, I don't know. I don't want to get too much into the parallels. It always feels like they feel like they're real, but like less real, so I don't want to spend too much time. Parallel Rex Murphy, I think I'm going to put in C tier. His ability to swap between Clue Drop and Curses is kind of neat, but there's really nothing too particularly impressive about the guy. I think he's cool and fun, and I've seen some neat builds with him in some of our game days. But a lot of the time you're building him, and you just can't shake the feeling of, like, why? You know? So, the one thing I do like about the Parallel Investigators is, for the most part, they eat designs... they eat designs that I would not want to see on, like, boxed Investigators. So thank you for that, Rex. I think the only investigator the one that I want to see, like Parallel Ashcan's Pete's attachment ability. I wish that was on an actual official investigator. Not so much the guitar, but we're gonna get to that. Parallel Jenny, so she plays talents at a reduced cost, and she can get money back. I think she also, so this is just tentative. This is a few plays with her. I'm gonna put her in the C tier as well. I don't think she's bad. But I don't think she's also particularly great either. Again, I don't know. It seems like a little bit of floundering when it comes to it, and it feels like she's designed more for standalone play than campaign play, you know? The upgraded guns are the replacement. The advanced guns are crazy, but you can also play them in regular Jenny, which is kind of cool. I always like the advanced stuff. That's kind of the things I like more than the official things. Sorry, than the investigators. I really like those things, because you can play them with the official investigators and see how it goes. Parallel Jim. So this guy's complicated, right? Mostly because he is complicated. But, like, he's really like two different characters stapled together, right? Like there's the weird front half and then the ghost graveyard back half. And like these like designs could only exist in Parallel Investigators because they are like over designed, right? The problem is I think he's powerful. I think he's complicated, but I think he's quite powerful. I think I'm going to put him in... I think we missed out on a normal Gator with a Ghost Graveyard in the same way Joe is the Hunchback. It would have been sweet, but I actually don't think that would have happened in an official product. I feel like that's, once again, like, the reason it's on a Parallel Investigator because it wouldn't exist elsewhere. Where am I putting this guy? Man, having the allies, like, the ally thing is, like, so good, and that's what's calling me towards A tier. But I don't have enough experience with it to really put it there confidently. I'm going to put him in B tier. Alright, Parallel Ashcan Pete. This has not changed from last year. He's an easy S tier investigator. The guitar is the strongest card in the game. Bar none. Not even thinking about it. That guitar is insanely powerful. His ability is also really good on top of that. Honestly, like, it's crazy. Why can't I heal horror? Because guitars mellow you out, man. Like, how could you not lose horror when I just did that? Like, you just healed, right? You felt better about yourself, right? It made just you feel like happier. Yeah, that is a crazy powerful card, that guitar. So, I said this last year and I was like hesitant on it, but after playing it like again a few times in 2024, insane card. Absolutely nutty. Strongest card in the game, in my opinion. Alright, Parallel Father Matteo is gonna get A tier entirely on the backs of Ancient Covenant. If Ancient Covenant didn't exist, I would agree with the commenter that said Zoe Samaras was the strongest Blessed Investigator. I would agree with them there. However, right now, because of Ancient Covenant, Parallel Father Matteo is incredibly powerful. If you want an example of what this guy can do, check out the video on my channel where I play him for the first time, and I win full clear Threads of Fate halfway through the second agenda. It was crazy. It turns out guaranteeing a success each turn with upside is pretty powerful. I'm not going to put this onus on just Father Matteo. It's definitely Ancient Covenant's problem, and I do think that if they ever revisit Bless, and even just generally, I think that card can use another taboo. I don't know what they would do without killing the card, so honestly, if they just made it forbidden, I would not complain. The card seems way too strong with how the game is now. Especially because you can pull, like, it was better when you had like a limited 3 Favor of the Sun, but Parallel Father Matteo just absolutely kills it. But who knows, maybe they like that thing, you know? I do think he struggles a bit with keeping blesses back in a 4th player for himself. That seems crazy. Because that seems incorrect. Because you do know that the token that he pulls with his ability goes back in the bag, right? So he can just put it right back on him, right? You only need 1 bless token with Father Matteo to win the game. You only need 1. Like, you only actually ever need to generate 1 bless token, and you can loop it infinitely. Like, yeah, when the Serpent comes out, you're going to just need to generate 1 more bless token. He also has that card that just came out in Hemlock, where if you succeed by 5, you're going to put 5 bless tokens in the bag. Now, if only there was a way that Father Matteo could succeed by 5 on command. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, I don't agree with that assessment at all, that he has struggles with keeping blesses in the bag in a 4-player for himself. He needs 1 fucking token. That sounds crazy to me. I don't agree with that sentiment at all. I'm sorry. Let's move on to Parallel Monterey Jack, who I don't think is that good. I think what he's done for the design is awesome in terms of, like, these Edge of the Earth investigators. I think I'm going to put him in the C tier as well. I think that's where he's going to live. And I think the reason for that is that his ability is kind of lacking, but I think his card pool is really good, and I think his stat line works really well with his new card pool. I'm very excited for them to do the other Edge of the Earth investigators, because I really like what they actually do for the front to back. Susie not on the tier list again. I'm sorry, Susie is a joke investigator. Susie, to me, is in the same world as the Barkham investigators. And they are not part of the equation. I know that makes some people upset, but I'm sorry, Susie's never going to be one of these. But you can only steal 1 every turn, and finding a turn where you don't release a token to pass the test is something I find hard. I'm confused. So you spend a turn. Your first turn is you seal the token on yourself, right? Then your next turn is you pass a test. Let's just say a read the signs. You bring it back to your hand. You just put that bless token back on you, right? Like, I'm confused. So, like, if you just release the token, you just put it back on yourself. Like, that's why I'm confused. Anyways, that's our tier list. Man. In 3 years, this is going to be like a 5-hour video. But then you don't use Ancient Covenant that turn? You do use Ancient Covenant that turn. That's why I'm confused. Like, I think you and I are just having, like, we're just miscommunicating. You put the token on him. Next turn, you use Read the Signs, use Ancient Covenant. The token goes back in the bag. You put the token back on Father Matteo. That's kind of like, that's the loop. That's all you need. You just need 1 token and you're done. Like, you've done it. And you just need to pass 1 test a turn, and everything else is just like using your mystic events that are good. Yeah, but what about turn 1? What about turn 1? Like, what about turn 1? Yeah, you have a setup turn like literally almost every other investigator in the game. And the turn after drawing his weakness? You put 1 fucking bless in the bag! I don't understand what you're saying! Like, you just need 1 bless token. You just need 1 bless token. Run 2 copies of Keep Faith in your deck. You're good. Run, like, any of, like, the million bless producers that exist. Like, I don't know. I think you are out to lunch. I'm sorry. I like to try to be kind, but I think you are completely out to lunch on this one. Thanks for watching, everybody. Merry Christmas. On that note, we're unfortunately ending on a little bit of a wild thing there. Happy holidays to everyone who watched this video. I hope you enjoyed this long little video, as well as some videos with Bryn and Travis coming out the next few days. This has been our tier list for the year. We'll revisit it in 2025 as is tradition. And additionally, we also are going to I'll do a video where I compare our trends for the last few years, just because that's a personal favorite video of mine to record. I think that, again, we need to remember that power level is entirely up to the individual, and nothing I say here is actual word of God for any of this, because I'm not God. I'm just some dumb Canadian, right? But But these are all my things, and I would love to hear for your guys' thoughts down in the comments, because I always like to read thoughts on Arkham Horror characters. My favorite thing to do in this game is to learn and try to make discoveries and challenge my perspective of my own power level for the game. So I'm always happy to read people's thoughts on stuff. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have a good one. And as always, a GG's.